Teleprompter.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Village of Ruidoso regular meeting. This September 8th, it's 1 o'clock. So we'll go ahead and if you'll join me in standing for a moment of silence, and then I'll ask Councilor Jackson to give us an invocation, and we'll do the pledge and the salute to the state flag.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be here, guide and make safe others. We ask your education and the guidance for the decisions that are made here today. We ask that our minds be clear and that our hearts be pure. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, to see a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Wow, we were in sync.
Well, we didn't hear that little delay.
Yeah, the delay.
So, Mrs. Devine, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor Eby.
Here.
Councilor Letterman. Here. Councilor Cornelius.
Here.
Councilor Coughlin.
Here.
Councilor Salas.
Here. All right, so we're all in the same big room, so hopefully people out there in internet land will be able to hear better. We won't have as many technical difficulties. So I hope everybody got a chance, and I know you did, to review the agenda, and I know some of you are recovering from the big, beautiful weekend that we just had. I know there were a few people in town. I know the racetrack did very well. There's some great races, so I know we're getting ready for a big weather change. So can we get a motion for the consent regular items?
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented and giving you the liberty to move items as needed.
Second.
Okay, no other discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Councilor Salas.
Aye.
Councilor Jackson.
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
Aye.
Councilor Letterman. Aye. Councilor Cornelius.
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin.
Aye.
All right. We'll run through the consent regular items. Item number 1 is approval of governing body minutes, August 4th, 2020, workshop meeting, August 11th, 2020, regular meeting. Number 2 is the approval of agreement with Systems MD LLC through Cooperative Educational Services, CES, for managed service computer system support. Item number 3 is approval of T-Hangar lease agreement with Roy Butler for lease of Alpha 3T hangar at the Sierra Blanca Regional Airport. Item number 4 is approval of T-Hangar lease agreement with Jason Heller for Bravo 3T hangar at the Sierra Blanca Regional Airport. Number 5 is the approval of lease agreement with Ishmael Sanchez for Aqua Environmental Testing Laboratory in the amount of $7,500. Number 6 is the approval of addendum number 2 with Green Tree Solid Waste Authority for recycling services through June 30th, 2021. Number 7 is the approval of memorandum of understanding between the Village of Ruidoso as the fiscal agent for the Lincoln County Ruidoso DWI program and the Village of Ruidoso as the administrative authority for the Ruidoso Police Department for DWI enforcement and reimbursement of costs. Item number 8 is the approval of second renewal agreement with Bohannon Houston, Inc. for design and engineering services for trail design and construction management for trail projects. Number 9 is approval of second renewal agreement with Zia Engineering and Environmental Consultants for professional engineering services for Main Road number 1 additional services. Item number 10 is approval of change order number 3, IFB number 2020-002B with Cherokee Enterprises, Inc. for Alto 2 Well H 1979-S7 improvements, requesting an extension of 30 days to October 23rd, 2020. Number 11 is request to schedule a public hearing on October 13th, 2020 for appeal of Planning Commission's decision to deny case number CU-2020-0550, Tyler and Tamara Stuckey, applicants 2213 Sudruth, request for a mobile vending stand in conjunction with Tall Pines Beer and Wine Garden to provide food to customers located within a C3 Midtown Commercial District. Number 12, request to schedule a public hearing on October 13th, 2020 for ordinance 2020-07 and ordinance for the leasing of the tract of land known as Eagle Creek Sports Complex and adjacent real property to Ruidoso Snow Play and Ice Skating Inc. to expand the operations of Ruidoso Winter Park and to construct and operate additional outdoor recreation facilities. Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent regular items as read.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Not up. Roll call, please, Mrs. Devine.
Counselor Eby.
Aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Aye.
Counselor Letterman. Aye. Counselor Salas.
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin.
Aye.
Okay. Next portion is public input. Do we have anyone email, Zoom in, call in for public input, ma'am?
Mayor Crawford, members of the governing body, we did advertise as required, and as we have been doing, we did request that any public input be submitted to the clerk's office by 11 o'clock this morning, and we have not received anything in writing or email or any other means of communication for this. No, we don't have any.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And hopefully soon we'll be where we can have somebody come in. Okay, we'll move on to mayoral reports and presentations. The first item is introduction of new Village of Ruidoso employees and promotions. And this is always a fun part because we finally get to see some of these folks and they'll get to see you and not me. So we're all about that. So today we have, as a new employee, the telecommunications officer at PD is Selena Soto. And she started on August the 3rd, 2020. I think she's here today. Is she here, Jeffrey?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So we'll bring her in.
You recognize.
Come on in. And I don't know if you know Manager Dodge. Joseph Eby. Lena, and I'm Lynn. Nice to meet you. And then we've got Counselor Jackson, Counselor Coughlin, that's over on the back, and Cornelius. I know they don't look like twins, but. And then, of course, we have Counselor Letterman, right here, and Salas. So we just wanted to welcome you to the village, and hopefully, I know you started, you're settling in well, and hopefully you'll have a long career here with us, and if there's everything you need, please don't hesitate. So can we just see your face so we'll know who you are? Okay, awesome, everybody. Nice to see you.
That's the last you'll see her face.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Travis Casillas. He's with the he's a heavy equipment operator.
Travis?
Water, wastewater.
Travis isn't here yet, sir.
Okay, no Travis. And then next is with code enforcement and animal control officer, Josh Lund. I know that Bobby will be happy and Chief Cook will be happy. We got a new guy here. So I think most people know this guy, don't we? You.
How are you doing?
Welcome aboard.
Thanks, sir. How are you?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
So that's Counselor Cornelius and Coughlin, and then Salas over in the back. And so you're not new to Ruidoso.
No, I've been working out at the Downs for several years.
That's for us, and you just have to
Yes,
race.
that's right.
That's it. Okay, well, welcome aboard. And hopefully if you have anything that you need from us, just, you know who we are. And please make a phone call or do whatever we need to do to help you out. So let us see your face so they know who you are. Okay, everybody got it?
Are you, to John?
No, I'm no relation.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Josh, appreciate it.
it.
Hope you have a long career with us. Okay, we have a promotion for Jeremy Brown to meter reader foreman. He was promoted on August the 16th, 2020.
Front and center, you recognize.
This is Jeremy Brown. I think most people recognize Jeremy. He's been with the village for some time. Well, congratulations on your promotion. And hopefully it's just the first of many throughout your career. So,
Thank you.
and you know most of everybody here already? All right. Well, thank you for stopping in today. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Ben.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Anthony Torres?
Not here, not gonna be here.
Okay. All right. He's a solid waste dumpster maintenance tech. He was promoted on the 16th of last month. So, and I know that's important. In fact, I've got a list of damaged dumpsters that I'll be talking to him about. So I was hoping he'd be here. Okay, and then, thanks to Mayor Pro Tem Salas giving me the ability to jump around, I would like to recognize AJ Forty, the director of the Municipal League is on. I can see his bright shiny face. Welcome, sir.
How are you, Mayor?
We're very good, very good. How about you?
I think we finally recovered from our annual conference, so thank you all for joining.
I thought it was good. Thank you for having us on. I know we had some technical difficulties, but we really enjoyed you letting Ruidoso get to, have a little bit of the limelight and have some input. So thank you for that.
Of course, Mayor, and we really did feel that we wanted to highlight what's working. And that was the point of that challenges and opportunities section, saying, we have so much expertise within our communities, let's showcase it. So we really do appreciate you taking the time. Technical glitches, we're always going to have those. We had a few of them throughout the conference, and that comes with our new world and figuring out how to work with technology on a daily basis. So we just appreciate y'all joining the way you did.
Thank you.
And one piece, Mayor and councilors, we did have a technical glitch on our end. And, Counselor, you made it through our Molly program. And I do want to apologize for us not recognizing you at the conference, but we had, again, technical glitches moving to our digital format. It does make it hard at times to catch everything. And so we did make a mistake there, but I do appreciate the opportunity to call in today to say, thank you for making it through our Molly class. Our Molly classes in general are so beneficial to our members. I sit through them. I teach some of the classes. The more people we have go through the entire Molly course, the better. So, Counselor, again, thank you for joining, and my apologies for not recognizing you at our annual conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, AJ. Appreciate you. And of course,
Mayor, Counselors, thank you.
thank you, buddy. And of course, he is talking about our one and only Counselor Susan Letterman. She was recognized, and that's something I haven't gone through all the way. So congratulations. And now then you'll know what you're talking about. Well, thank you very much. You got anything to say?
The only thing is that, that's 60, close to 100 hours of different classes, and, it's well worth the networking with your peers and getting some information. So I recommend it to anybody.
Real confidence builder too.
I think so.
Awesome.
I think it's always nice when you go to different places that you know people that are counselors or mayors or,
Sure.
and you can call on them. And you do get kind of friendly, and so it was well worth it.
Thank you. All right, well, AJ, thank you very much. I know you've got plenty to do today, and we appreciate all your efforts and all the different things that you do. And I know now that we're tackling the CARES Act money distribution and applications and approvals and all that, so I'm sure we'll be talking a lot. So thank you again for all that you're doing.
All right, thank you, Mayor, thank you, councilors.
And just let you know, we think you're doing a lot, you know, for the communities, municipalities, you know, what you guys are doing. And so, with that, you guys, it would be really insurmountable what we'd have to overcome. So thank you.
Thank you all.
You bet. Okay, move on to boards and commissions. I don't have any, but we will need to, what do we got? Oh, well, I ain't got there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Boards and commissions, we will need some folks on planning and zoning, and we have a few other areas that we need to fill. We are in the process right now of reviewing some, and then, since we're through the big weekend, I'll be following some of these folks up and doing some interviews and visiting with them and whatnot. So, again, if you know someone out there, if you're out there and you'd like to volunteer, please call. Okay, now we'll move on to my village. Let's see, the presentations. You were right, Jeffrey. Presentation of employees and the Department of the Quarter. First off, we have, I had them in alphabetical order, is Mr. Billy Randolph. Billy is knowledgeable in his position and takes his job seriously. He provides input to streamline scheduling and is willing to make changes to help out coworkers. He has adjusted seamlessly. Is that right, Billy? Seamlessly? Seamlessly to the COVID-19 cleaning and sanitation of public buildings. And he has taken on the refilling of the Midtown sanitizer dispensers, which is critical. We always wondered who was doing that, and now we know, so thank you. Billy is a thoughtful person and checks in with employees and their families on a regular basis. We really appreciate Billy and your attitude for everything that you've done. And so we would like to give you one of these cool little bears. All right. And since you're first in line, you can pick your bear. They're all hand carved. And you'll get this sweet little Employee of the Quarter award to hang on in your bathroom or wherever it is. Come on up, sir. Thank you very much, Billy. We appreciate you and all that you've done. And so which one of these fine specimens? This one right here. All right, buddy.
I just gonna pick the big one.
Here. So there you go, and thank you for all your hard work and congratulations. So, you have anything to say?
I'm still in.
All right, next is administrative, is Elaine Reynolds, and I think everyone knows Elaine. We have a big thank you to Elaine. She has done a great job this quarter, as always. Elaine is part of the employee committee, and as we all know, does a great job for the staff. She also has worked weekends at Elko Lake and the Ruidoso Sept, just to name a few. Applaud her for her leading by example during this pandemic and staying positive. Elaine, thank you very much. And as always, we always know how efficient that you are and the things that you do. You keep those guys in order over there. So here's your plaque. We appreciate you. And then you'll get one of these neat little bears too that acts as a business card holder also.
Okay, well,
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. You have anything to say?
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have one guy that's probably tired of hearing me calling. Public safety is Bobby Simpson. Bobby has been employed with the Ruidoso Police Department since February 2011. In this time, Bobby has committed himself with forming a relationship with the community to be proactive on code enforcement and animal control issues. Bobby is diligent with his work and always goes above and beyond with any assignment given to him. Come on in, Bobby. Thank you very much for all that you do. We're glad that we get to recognize you today. And now it sounds like you have a little help. Yeah, which is brought on, so that's awesome. So here's your cool little pie.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate all that you do. Thank you for always answering my calls when I say, what about this or what about that? Following up on those things, but we appreciate all your hard work. And hopefully this is just a little example of that we do have appreciation for you. So
Thank you.
anyway, do you have anything to say?
No, I like working for the village. Good bunch of people, and I'll continue to keep doing good work.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, we have out of the Public Works is Adelardo Lerma. Lalo is always willing to come out and work after hours, emergencies, no matter what time it is or weekends or holidays. He's always made himself available. Lalo is also volunteered any weekend needed to work at the lakes. So come on in here, young man. And you go by Lalo?
Yes, sir.
Lalo, okay, I was struggling with the name, but here's your awesome little plaque. We appreciate everything that you've done and then helping us out with the lakes. And here's a little small carved bear that you have your business cards, you can put them in right there. Do you have anything you'd like to say to us or? No? You're okay?
Thank you
All right,
so
Lalo,
much.
thank you so much for your hard work. Last but not least is the Department of the Quarter, which is the library. During the second quarter of 2020, the Ruidoso Public Library staff, while working with only 4 of their 6.5 employees, helped out the Ruidoso Sept, stuffing over 10,000 bags and working on weekends in Midtown. They did this while performing their regular duties and working on large library projects such as patron and material database maintenance, inventory, weeding, curbside service cleaning, and distance number reading program. Library staff has continued to help out in other departments as needed while taking on new duties, training in-house, as well as in the Novus agenda and Tyler requisition. So we thank you very much. As always, Diane, you guys do a great job. So we have your handy little bear. Somebody fixed it up.
Maybe the COVID day.
COVID bear. So thank you for everything you've done. Do you have anything that you'd like to say? It's your shot.
Just thank you. I don't have anything else. Just thank you. No, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And here you go. We got on display over at the library for all your folks to see, and then she knew what she was looking for. And you get your neat little plaque. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you wanna mention at all, or you assignment you're gonna be helping us with? We talked about this word.
Well, the CARES Act, I don't know, do they know that?
Yeah.
The CARES Act with
All the told.
we received like 2.7 and then 1.71 or 1.17 million dollars back on the CARES Act that we're working together. And so we're going to be working with the library staff and several others on the applications from businesses that you'll be helping them, making sure that all their information is filled out correctly, all the I's are dotted, T's crossed, so that we can try to get this money in their hands as quickly as possible. I know we're supposed to advertise it for 10 days, so we're getting ready to go. So these folks here at the library are going to be very instrumental in getting some money and some help into the businesses in the community. So we appreciate that too. So that's just an added service. So thank you. You bet.
Mayor, I just wanted to add that because, the librarians are very detail oriented and, they're always willing to jump in and help us out. And I think she was the first one to have all of the evaluations in this quarter, so.
That's awesome.
Like
They
I said,
do a
I
great
got
job.
it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thank you very much. All right. Those things are always fun. We have other items that we have to deal with more serious in nature, but those are serious too, because those are really the backbone of our staff. Okay, now we'll move into the village manager report. Manager Dodge.
Mayor, at the workshop meeting, you asked me to have Josh present on some of the efforts that he's made on purchasing new vehicles. So
Yes.
Josh, would you go ahead and present?
Yes, sir. Mayor, council, on the purchase of our new trucks, we have got them ordered. We ordered them, it was in the middle of August, and they're on a 14-week, they're 14 weeks out. And we did get help from the solid waste, which they gave us one of their transport trucks. So that will save us money on that. And with that money that we saved, it was $135,000. So with that extra money, we'd like it to look into purchasing maybe another vehicle and a striper or other equipment.
Okay, that sounds good. I know we're just all interested in, after your department, has been run down so long over the last few years, that we get to your vehicles, and we just want to keep track on progress over there. So We're glad to hear that. Do you have anything else to add, Josh?
With that, I mean, and, yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to put it in there now, just the update on our project.
That's up to the manager. What, you want me to do it now?
That's fine if you want to do it, updates on some of this.
Yeah, go right ahead, Josh.
Okay, we've been working in, the Upper Canyon on our co-op projects, and that co-op project is, roughly 45 to 50% done. So we'll have to have that done, fully done by December, and, looking hopefully by the end of October to have be chip sealed and begin finishing up with that project.
Well, I know because I've gotten a lot of comments from people up there that have got their roads paved and are very appreciative of that. So you guys are making an impact up there. So that's great.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Josh.
Mayor, moving on, I got Eric. Eric has the annual water report. He's going to give you a brief overview of that. And then in addition to that, he's going to invite anybody that wants to listen in on the utilities committee for a full report on the annual water report. So Eric?
Wait, let me share my screen quick. Okay, so I submitted everyone the water conservation report today. I don't expect that many of you read the 110 pages in the last hour or so. But I just wanted to hit some highlights, and then you guys are welcome to call me afterwards to talk to me about any of it. So this conservation report is submitted. It goes over the conservation efforts that we did last year, where we're sitting at with the water audit, and then our goals for the upcoming year. So I just wanted to show you guys some graphs on some of our progress. This figure here is showing what I feel is the sense of having the new meters, customer meters installed. This is showing the amount of leak credits that we were issuing. And if you remember, a leak credit is water that went through that billing meter, but it leaked out in that line going out to somebody's house. And it was historically hard for people to recognize those leaks until we have that AMI system that alerts us every 24 hours of continuous leaks. And so we've reduced the amount of credits that we've issued from in 2016. It was 13.9 million gallons, and this last year is only 0.32 million gallons. So I think that's like a 98% reduction. So that's pretty good news. Total water supply to the system. We're starting to see some increases in water supply to our system, but using 2016 as our benchmark, we still have a substantial reduction in total water into the system. So about 80 million gallons reduced from 2016. And so when we look at our authorized consumption, whether it's billed or on-billed, the on-billed water is water that's used by the water production department and water distribution for producing water, and then also the fire department for firefighting efforts. We have kind of a general increase in sales and a decrease in on-billed water, so that's pretty good news, but it's relatively consistent. So our authorized consumption is relatively similar. And then when we go to what's called our non-revenue water, you can see that we still maintained a substantial amount of our savings. Our low was in 2018. We have seen a slight uptick in non-revenue water, which we're going to be addressing here with some programmatic changes. So New to this year, we did it's called a real loss component analysis. And so, in that graph of non-revenue water, there's a component called real loss. And we can make assumptions that that's water that's leaking out of the system. It's not from metering inaccuracies, or it's not water that we authorize to be consumed, but it's not gaining revenues. And so we did this by taking our work order data and looking at our reported failures along with our system-wide pressures, and we're basically putting this real loss into three major categories. So we've got background leakage, so that's about 44% of our real loss. Reported failures, 2%, and then 54% unreported and hidden losses. And so based on how these are distributed, it helps us determine what mechanisms we want to use to implement a preventative leak program. And so the background leakage, this is mainly associated with pipe conditions and system pressure. So, we already have our capital improvement plan set up. We've been doing the water pipe replacements. So that helps with this background leakage a bit. It also, if we can reduce system pressures, we might be able to reduce this amount a little bit, but that's going to require some extensive engineering analysis. And so in the next year, we're hoping to budget for a new master plan for the water utility, and include in that pressure evaluation to see if we can change and optimize system pressures to reduce that amount. The reported failures, you can improve the percentage from reported failures by improving response time. So in a lot of larger utilities, sometimes a leak can be reported and it could go on for several days until a crew has time to respond to it. We have a really proactive repair team, and so repairs are done, right at about as soon as they're reported. So there's not a lot of gain that we can have by trying to speed up that process. We're doing pretty good there. But the big one is this hidden losses. This is leaks in the system that aren't coming to the surface, that we're not seeing. And so this is where you might have a leak in the system that, say, maybe it's along Cedar Creek or along the Ruidoso, and the water is just flowing into the stream. Maybe not directly, but seeping into the ground and going into the river. Or, if you're looking at some of the areas like the Camelot subdivision, the subdivision is built on what's called a karst formation. So there's a bunch of caves underneath there that can hold water. And so if a leak hits one of those caverns, it might not surface ever. It just might keep leaking into these caverns. And so the way that you find this water is through proactive leak detection program, where you bring out sounding equipment and you can hear certain sounds in the pipes to determine if there's a leak or not. The last time we did a thorough leak detection program was 2016, and we've been looking at acquiring the equipment in-house. Unfortunately, Adam had scheduled some site visits from vendors in late March, and so those had to be canceled due to some of the COVID restrictions. And so hopefully we'll be able to start picking that process back up and buying some equipment in-house to start this program. Just some major highlights of what we're going to be doing next year. We're developing our protocol and are going to test the demand side meters, the billing meters for our highest users. So protecting that revenue stream and making sure that those meters are working appropriately. We'll be doing the town and country water lines replacement as a capital improvement project. We're looking at securing the funding for Paradise King and Pine Cliff water line replacements. We're going to set up a procedure for testing a statistically representative sample of all the smaller meters. So think of the residential meters, we'll sample a component of them to make sure that our meters are testing accurately. Purchase the leak detection equipment that I discussed. We're gonna look at auditing our work order system to make sure the work orders are filled out thoroughly, so we have all the data necessary for this real loss component analysis. And then we'll budget for the master plan update, and then we'll implement the asset management program once we have the plan finalized and approved, which should hopefully happen here in December or January. So with that, that was a really big rushed overview, but does anyone have any questions?
Anyone?
Well, where's that,
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eric.
Eric, it's John. On that town and country replacement you're talking about, will that qualify for part of our match if we get that CDBG money?
That's why we did that
Okay,
project in that area. So yes.
okay, good money.
Anyone else? Okay. Manager?
Mayor, moving on, we're gonna have an update from Jake on the trimming the slash removal and the improvement to the watershed. 88 on the 88 acres of the village owned property on Ski Run Road.
Yep.
So Jake, are you there?
Thanks, Eric.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Are you guys seeing my screen?
No, sir.
Now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is about a 90-acre project that's up behind the ball fields out of Eagle Creek. And this was first in 2004. And the way it did it before was that they sold permits for firewood. They actually went up in here and essentially high-graded area. There was a lot of the area that was not entered at that time. But on this picture, you can see the ball fields, and the area in red here is the area that's the current snow park. And the yellow lines are roads that are being constructed to help get the material out of here. Now, one of the things we did before we started the project was actually have a meeting with Tom Dorgan, and tell him what we were planning to do and see if he had any concerns. And we actually had quite a lengthy conversation at that time about what he'd like to see and what he wouldn't. And one of the things that he said was that he'd like to have more access up here because he's talking about some expansion. And so we coordinated that and proposed this road. And for construction of this road and the project in general, I'd like to just share with you a little bit about the coordination that went on. I already mentioned the meeting with Tom Dorgan. But once that happened, then we submitted the project to the development review process where all the directors looked at what we were proposing and what we were planning to do, the costs, and they had a chance to put forth any concerns that they had. And so we went through that process, and then we took it to the watershed committee, and the watershed committee took a look at it and made some recommendations. And one of the recommendations that we talked about was thought there was some opportunity in this area here, there's a little canyon here, to do some watershed to slow down the flow, comes down this little canyon here. So we have an opportunity to put some structures in to slow down the water flow in that area. And Josh actually went with Cass Davidson of our staff to actually flag the road lines. And this road has already been roughed in. I have some pictures in just a second to show you of what they've done so far. The project that we have will be in about 3 projects. The first project will be on the west side, and it'll go about like that. And it's about 30 acres in that first project. And the next one will be on the other side, which will be about another 30 acres. A lot of this is more Pine juniper than it is pine. And then the third one will be this part in here. As you can see in this picture, there are areas that have lots of trees and areas that don't have many trees. And we actually have some encroachment over here on the west side of the trailer park. It's over there. And maybe a little bit of encroachment on the east side by next to the hotel. But what we're planning to do is in the lower part of this where we'll have access, haul all the stuff out and make it really a clean site as far as fuels go. The middle part of this is pretty steep. And so what we'll do is pull what we can down to this road, and what we can there with the top part of it, we'll pull up here where we can masticate. And so we don't want to leave any more material on the ground than we have to in here. But there will be some areas in here that we just won't be able to get to. And it'll be a lot of scattered, which means essentially you cut it down to within about 18 inches of ground and leave it alone. There is one area here that I don't know if you can see it in your picture or not, right in here that has a lot of oak. The lighter color green there is oak, but it doesn't have much of a pine or overstory or fir overstory, so that's got to be a unique little area, but there won't be much thin in it. So you can see that we'll have areas here where we'll have to take a few trees out of, and some that we'll have to take more trees out of in order to meet the specs. And one reason that we started on the west side is so we can get it done, and so we can look at it with Tom and see if that's going to fit with what he wants his expansion and things here. And I think it will clean up really nice and still have a nice covering of trees that'll be in there.
So Dick, up there where you're talking about, we'll still leave the big trees. That's primarily your goal, isn't it?
You talking about in the snow park area or up on top?
Up on the snow park area and on top.
Yeah, I got some pictures in a minute, Mayor, that will show you a little bit, but since this was thinned before, there's been a multitude of small regenerations. So a lot of this, particularly in the areas that don't show many trees, most of that will be nothing but understory removed. So most of these big trees in these areas will still remain here. There are some areas, like right here where it says village 90 acres, there's some areas in there that are a little thicker that we'll have to thin some out of. But it'll be a nice mix, and it won't be too thin. Some people try to contrast this area with the area across the street over here, but it's a completely different area. The area across the street over here had a severe bug kill before we got in there and cleaned it up. And we don't have near the bug kill in this area that we're going to be looking at on this side. So it'll still be a forested looking area. There won't be a lot of open areas, except where there are already open areas. But the understory will be cleaner, but the overstory will, you may not even be able to tell much of a difference from through. Oops, I didn't know what to do there. Uh-oh, my technology here.
Mayor, what I'd like to do is maybe schedule some trips out there with the council and actually take them out and show them the property.
Yeah, it's really awesome there.
I went by this weekend and had all the attractions.
Blocking the lane.
Yeah, of course.
That is.
Okay, we're gonna probably back, you got my screen again.
No, we don't see anything.
Dick, what I'd like to go ahead and do is just go ahead and let's schedule some trips out there, take the council out there and actually show them the property.
Okay, be glad to do that.
So Dick, remind me, you're gonna start on the west side first section?
Yes, the west side, yes.
When do you think on starting that, or when does the contract begin?
We've marked the sample marking area, but I haven't checked the sample mark, and as soon as we do that, we'll write up the specifications, and I expect it to be lit by the end of this month.
Okay.
Hey, you got the pictures now?
Nope.
No.
Well,
I'm good, Mayor, since we're gonna be touring the place, I think we'll.
Dick, we're gonna go ahead and move on and, appreciate your presentation. Good job, Dick. Let's send those photos
okay,
out.
sorry about the glitch, but anybody that wants to go out and see this, essentially what it is overstory with a bunch of old tiles that they left from the last time and a lot of reproduction underneath. And anybody of the council that would like to go out there, get with me and schedule the time, I'll be glad to take it.
Dick, let's work with him on to get that scheduled out. And then well, if you can share those pictures for the FYI on Thursday and we'll be good. Okay?
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you, Dick.
Thanks, Dick.
Mayor, council, moving on, next we got a presentation, it's gonna be led by Ron on the, roundabout, the feasibility study by Ohio Houston. Ron?
Well, Mayor, members of the council, I have Bert Thomas and Alvin Dominguez with Ohio Houston. They'll be providing a presentation on the roundabout project. I will give it to Bert. Is that Bert?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me, Ron?
Yes.
Ron, do you have the presentation that you can share, or do you want me to try and share my screen?
Have to share it off with yours.
Okay, let me try and see if I can get it to the screen for everyone to view. Are you able to see my screen?
No, sir, not yet.
It's trying.
It's trying.
It's a big road.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know when you're able to see it.
Still find
Mayor, real quickly, while we're loading that, if you don't mind, Mayor, I'm gonna give a little bit of presentation on the CARES. Okay, we're right here. Give them some opportunity to pull that up. Mayor, one of the things, I met with Ron this morning, and, it's our recommendation on the CARES grant that we continue to develop our plan. I'm going to request a special meeting, for early next week, where we actually take the plan, to the governing body for you to approve the plan. Over the weekend on next Friday, I did receive the additional guidance that I was requesting from DFA. I did forward that to all the mayor and council. We talked about putting up an application process and giving at least 10 days. And then they also recommend that there's a panel that will review it. So what we're going to be working on, and I know the mayor's going to be asking a few people to participate in the process of developing an application. The first part will have identifiable, organizational identifiable information on it. And then the second part would be criteria that would be scored. And the panel that would be scoring the applications would not be able to know who the identity of the organization is. So the mayor, it's our recommendation to the mayor to appoint a panel that would review those. And then those scores would go back to the librarians that will be working with Ron to process those applications. No applications, if they're not eligible, if they don't present all the correct information, then they would be forwarded to the panel. But they would be screened by the librarians. The librarians would work with the individuals to try to make sure that we're getting as much information as possible from them, basically assisting them to fill out the information. For example, it asks, is this organization, do you have a certificate of good standing? Well, if they're an individual business, is that a certificate of good standing with taxation and revenue, or is it a certificate of good standing with a state corporation commission? Two different things completely. So, it could be also a business license. Do they have a business license or not? So if they don't have a business license, those are all things that we need to work with. One of the recommendations that I'm making is we did in the application, prior to the application, we did an industry impact. And we broke down the industries and made not a recommendation, but an analysis on the various impacts in the various industries. In my opinion, that should be a weighted criteria, so that when we're awarding money, the industries that got impacted the greatest should be given some type of point system. I imagine it much like the state did. The state had $50 million for the local business or the local business park, and they had over, I would say, probably close to 80 million of requests. So the criteria tied back into a point system. And then I went back and looked at the percentage of money available compared to the percentage of rewards, and it broke it down proportionally. For instance, for us, we applied for 2 million. We scored a maximum 50 points. But when you look at the amount of money available, incrementally it drops per entity. And that's how come we ended up with the 1.17. So we're going to have a plan that we develop, and we'll have that plan ready for the council to approve. And I would request that we have that meeting early next week, if that is okay with the mayor and council. Yeah. And the mayor is going to make a recommendation on a couple of other individuals. Yes, we'll find a couple. Is there any questions on that partner? Council have any questions? No.
There's money. Ready to get on that so we can get some money and some folks in. So it looks like that we're up and running now.
All right. Mr. Mayor and council members and Ron, and I appreciate you guys having us here today. My name's Albert Thomas, Senior Vice President of Orlando Houston And I'm here to present the findings from our US 70 New Mexico 48 roundabout feasibility study. So thanks again for having us. You go to the next slide, Carl. In this overview of the presentation of the material, we're going to review the existing conditions. We're also going to take a look at the kind of give you an introduction and background to the project. We'll look at our intersection alternatives that we considered. And then we're going to look at some corridor alternatives where we look at different improvements along Mexico 48. The existing conditions part of it at the end is going to go over some of the environmental resources and drainage issues that we identified. And then we'll wrap it up with some conclusions and recommendations. So if you go to the next slide, this kind of gives the project setting and background. The project began with an evaluation of the US 70 New Mexico 48 intersection. Those of you that may remember, approximately 15 years ago, this area was looked at and we developed a conceptual layout of a roundabout at this intersection. And our thoughts at the time is that it would help the traffic flow at this skewed intersection and also allow for more accessibility to properties located on the east side. Had that design been implemented 15 years ago, we probably would have had some benefits from it, but now 15 years later, things have changed, traffic volumes have continued to increase. And so we had to take a look at it again and just kind of understand whether or not it would still work. So keep that in mind as we discussed the analysis. The project had two distinct items that we looked at. The New Mexico 4870 intersection, which is shown on the green circle here on the right-hand side. And then the second one is the review of the New Mexico 48 corridor between Mescalero Trail and US 70, which is the light green corridor that's shown along here. This section, there's two minor arterial roadways that intersect New Mexico 48. One of them is Mescalero on the left-hand side, and the other one is Sutton. Sutton is currently signed for 25 miles an hour, and Mescalero Trails at 35 miles an hour. Now, the intersection 48 and US 70, that's the intersection of two principal arterials. Each of them have 2 lanes in each direction, and both of them have 35 mile per hour speed limits. The next item we're going to look at is the purpose for the study. For the capacity analysis, we looked at, first of all, trying to improve functionality and aesthetics of the intersection itself. We looked at the idea of what impacts of the proposed improvements would have on the surrounding roadway network. And we did a comparative capacity analysis. The capacity analysis, we had to carefully review traffic data and assumptions that was used in the analysis. We actually counted this intersection back in February, which was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. So we're confident that these represent normal traffic flows at that time. However, we also realized that February is not the peak season for Ruidoso. So we worked with the village staff to review rider tax information and other information, and we determined that August is really the heaviest peak season. So we used the difference in rider's tax and other information to develop an adjustment factor, and we applied that adjustment factor to the February counts to increase traffic volumes to the seasonal peak in the community. We did it, and then with that, we did a comparative analysis looking at operational performance of the roundabouts. We looked at the operational performance of the traffic signal at 48 and US 70, and then we looked at some different alternatives to try and identify what improvements might be needed. The access management area, the New Mexico 48 corridor area, we looked at both capacity and we also looked at how to better utilize the existing roadway to get more functionality out of it. Go ahead and go to the next one, please, Carl. With the alternatives intersection analysis, we reviewed 8 different options. I'm going to show exhibits for each of these in a minute, but in general, the intersection alternatives included a no-build, a roundabout with a smaller in-stride diameter, 2 roundabouts with a 170-foot diameter, and then we looked at a couple of different options for peanut-shaped roundabouts, and then we looked at a dual roundabout with a 150-foot in-stride diameter for each of them. And then we looked at the last one because we were satisfied with the roundabout analysis. We actually developed this last option, which would modify the signalized intersection and provide better capacity. So I'll look at each of those in more detail. Let's look at the first one, being the no-build alternative of existing conditions. Everyone is very familiar with this intersection. As I said, we started with our August traffic volumes, and we looked at that, and you can see in the upper left-hand corner, the existing capacity analysis showed that it operates today with acceptable level of service. Level of service B in the AM, level of service C in the PM. For the 20-year horizon, we actually estimated 2040 traffic volumes by growing those August peak volumes by 40%, which is really equal to about 2% per year as a straight line growth. This is very comparable to the historical growth of these corridors that came from the NMDOT's traffic database. And as you can see, when the analysis uses the estimated 2040 traffic volumes, the PM peak hour drops to a level service E, which is not failing, but it does represent a poor condition for that intersection. I know you're all familiar with the intersection, but I also want to point out that the intersection has got a unique layout. It is skewed and it doesn't connect at 90 degrees. And in fact, the existing skew is more than what's typically recommended by today's guidelines. It only has 3 legs, which prohibits access on the east side, and it contains some sweeping right-hand turns. And for the unfamiliar driver, these existing configurations can be somewhat confusing. So for that reason, we looked at some different alternative configurations. And let's start with alternative B, which is the roundabout with 155-foot inch diameter. We started with this concept that was laid out 15 years ago as a potential improvement. This single lane roundabout with the 155 diameter is the smallest footprint that we want to have for a roundabout as it intersects 2 principal arterial roads. It does improve some of the functionality of this intersection, but as you can see, the level of service is good for today's conditions, but it fails in the PMP for the 2030-40 conditions. So for that reason, we started taking a look at some other alternatives or some other options for the roundabout. If you go to alternative C, this one again shows acceptable levels of service in the existing condition with the existing traffic volumes. But when we looked at this one, we also received low service at the 2040 volumes, and you're going to see that for all of these different roundabout configurations. This one has a 170-foot inside diameter, so it's a little bit bigger, allows a little bit more flexibility with traffic flow, and it allows us to put 2 eastbound lanes going from the eastbound to the westbound US 70 movement. So you can see we have 2 lanes in every direction. And for that reason, we were able to get a little bit better flow of traffic through here, but it still didn't give us acceptable levels of service. With this one, we kept Gatlin Canyon Road intersecting with US 70 before the intersection. We looked at another alternative. We could go to alternative B. We had the same roundabout layout, but we actually looked at putting a frontage road that connects Gatlin Canyon over to Sutton, which is a full access intersection. That would provide a little bit better traffic flow for the Gatlin Canyon and for some of the adjacent streets. But again, with this intersection alternative, the level of service is still poor level of service with the 2040 traffic volumes. The next one is a peanut-shaped roundabout. And we did this trying to take a look if we could separate some of the traffic movements so we get a better flow of traffic through here. And our traffic analysis and simulation still did not show that we're able to get acceptable levels of service with this. With alternative, the next alternative F, we adjusted it slightly and took a look at maybe a better connection with the adjacent roadways. Again, we had decent traffic movements, but we were not able to get the level of service that we needed for the 20 years. Looking at alternative G, we thought maybe if we separated out these different movements into 2 different roundabouts, that maybe we'd be able to identify some better traffic flow at this location. This provided good connectivity to the adjacent properties, but because of the limited right-of-way that we had, we were only able to get 150-foot inside diameters and single-lane roundabouts at each location. And again, level of service ended up failing for us with this alternative. So instead of going to the next one, alternative H, instead of going with an alternative that didn't work, we took a look at something that wasn't really within our scope, or we figured we needed to identify something that maybe would give you a little bit better level of service. So this is a high T intersection. With this intersection, we would create more of a 90-degree connectivity between New Mexico 48 and US 70. And this one would allow free flow movements in all of the heaviest movement alternatives as possible. So with the traffic coming from Ruidoso Downs towards Mexico 48 with the going to the downtown area, we would still have a free flow right condition, but we'd have two lanes continuing southbound going towards from Ruidoso Downs towards Mescalero. We also have a free flow movement coming from the downtown area going as a right turn movement towards Mescalero. These two right turn movements are very similar to what you see today. The difference of this intersection is the traffic going from Mescalero to Ruidoso Downs will be a free flow movement. Even though it's a signalized intersection, that movement would have its own lanes and would be separated from the signalized movements and have free flow condition for 100% of the time. This would also have a dual left turn lane coming from the downtown area on the Mexico 48 going towards Ruidoso Downs. And so you would have two lanes of traffic coming through that signalized intersection at a left turn movement, and they would adjoin next to the two free flow movements coming from Mescalero, so that you have a 4-lane section at that time. And then they would narrow that down to 2 lanes at north of the intersection. With this, we're able to get acceptable levels of service for the intersection. In the 2040 time period, you can see levels of service A and B for all the movements. So we think this is a good recommendation for an alternative for making this intersection work both now and into the future. Before I go into the corridor analysis, is there any questions on the IP recommendation that we have?
Anyone? Coughlin?
So what I'm seeing here is comparing the current, the existing August PM peak to the 2040. It looks like the delay is going to increase and our level of service overall will go down because you're going from the New Mexico 48 to US 70 currently is at a level A and would go down to a level B. Am I reading that correctly?
That's correct, and if you remember, the 2040 volumes increased traffic volumes by about 40%. So if you compare the existing intersection to the proposed intersection, the existing intersection has level service F. The proposed high T would have level service B. And so it's you're trading off in terms of providing a better level of service overall for the intersection.
Okay, got it.
All right, any other questions on that? All right, with your permission, I'll move into the next part of our analysis, which was the corridor analysis. So with this one, we reviewed 4 different corridor alternatives. And again, this is the section of New Mexico 48 that goes from the Mescalero Trail signalized intersection up to US 70. In this area, we looked, of course, at no-bill, trying to understand what the existing conditions are. We looked at and let's go ahead and jump into the different alternatives so we look at them in more detail. So the no-build alternative is a 4-lane section with 2 lanes in each direction and 7-foot shoulders on either side. There is a dual yellow stripe down the center, which separates opposing traffic. With this, the traveling lanes are about 10.5 foot wide. So what we looked at is how do we keep the existing curb and gutter on the outside and repurpose the existing roadway to come up with a better flow of traffic. So the next alternative that we looked at, which is alternative this is the plan view of that area. Again, Mescalero Trail signalized intersection on the left-hand side of the map. And on the right-hand side of the map, you can see US 70 coming up on, to the Mexico 48 intersection. In this area, there's several driveways along the area, which can be identified on both the north and south side of the Mexico 48 that provides access to the adjacent businesses and properties. In this area, the entire width of roadway is taken up by driving lanes, again with a 7-foot shoulder that right now is often used as parking, even though the Department of Transportation would prefer not to have on-street parking on this portion of the facility. So looking at the next alternative that we considered, alternative number 2, we have two options for this. And what we've done is change the configuration. Instead of a 4-lane roadway, we created a 3-lane section, one driving lane in each direction with a shared left turn lane in the middle. Now, alternative 2 has a bike lane on either side with a 3-foot buffer that separates the driving lane from the bike lane. Alternative 2B would not have a bike lane, but would have an 8-foot shoulder that could be used for bicycle traffic, even though it wouldn't be a dedicated bicycle lane. So both of them take up the same amount of room. However, one of them provides actual striped bicycle lane with a bumper. So going to the plan view on this one, this really essentially does not change the driveway configuration. It allows all of the same driveway locations, and it provides left turn access into all of those driveways. With this alternative, we're able to actually modify the existing Mescalero Trail intersection. It would still be signalized, but we'd actually be able to create a left turn pocket so the traffic going westbound would be able to make a left turn into the south leg of that intersection. The other thing, which is going to be common for all of these alternatives, is we're proposing a signal at the Sutton intersection, which is located on the right-hand side of this diagram. By providing that signalized intersection, again, we're able to provide some gaps in traffic to provide the ability for traffic to cross at the driveways. But it also creates a controlled intersection at Sutton to allow the turning movements to occur, which will also provide good connectivity back together to Canyon Road on the north side. The next alternative is alternative 3. Again, with this one, we looked at 2 different options, one with bike lanes and one with just shoulders. This alternative actually creates a raised median instead of a continuous left turn median. It would comply with the state access management manual from the DOT. This is what would be implemented if they were constructing a new corridor without any constraints. As we go to the plan view on this one, you can see that the raised median would eliminate all of the left turn movements at the driveways and only provide left turn movement at the major intersections. You would have the signalized intersection at Mescalero Trail to the left, and you would have the signalized intersection with Sutton on the right-hand side there. Those would be similar to what I showed you in the previous. But the rest of the corridor would have a raised median, and you would have a left in going to the medical center westbound, be able to make a left in, but you would not be able to make the left out at that location. Instead, there would be a full access intersection located just to the left there, which is one of the existing roadways that connects to the adjacent properties. All of the other access points would be combined to reduce the number of driveways to meet the state access management manual. We felt that this one was too impactful on the businesses, so we did not recommend this be carried forward. Instead, we took a look at alternative 4. Alternative 4 is very similar to the last typical section that we showed you. One lane in each direction, raised median, and then with the option of either a bike lane with bumpers or a shoulder. The difference is if you look at the plan view, we allowed all of the existing driveways to remain at their current locations. Those driveways, many of them would be converted to right-in, right-outs, which is acceptable in terms of providing adequate access, but we would still have the raised median only providing left in at the major intersections that I described before. This one would require some sort of a access control the state access management manual, so we would have to run this by the DOT and get their approval for the design variance to implement this. But this is one that we recommend as the preferred alternative because it provides similar access to what you have today, but it improves the operational characteristics of the road to prevent dangerous safety considerations for the left turn movements. Go ahead and go to the next one. So environmental considerations, we looked at the natural, the social, and the economic resource areas. Again, looking at the expectations associated with the NEPA. And really, there's no significant issues that have been identified due to this already being in the urban setting. It actually provides opportunities for improved bicycle and pedestrian and improved safety within the project area. So we felt these recommendations would have a positive environmental outcome over the recommendations. Looking at the drainage, there is an existing FEMA floodway and floodplain covering a portion of the intersection and extending a little bit to the east of the intersection. We will have to work with the local floodplain administrator to make sure that anything that we do does not impact that floodway or floodplain. And then along New Mexico 48, there's limited storm drain within the project vicinity. So we would take a look at, of course, reviewing the existing conditions, but we would look at trying to make improvements to the New Mexico 48 lake to better accommodate the drainage in the area. So again, conclusions and recommendations. We're recommending that the high T intersection be implemented for the US 70 New Mexico 48 intersection. This will realign the intersection to connect a little further south than existing conditions and create a right angle. And it would create free flow movements from US 70 from Mescalero to Ruidoso Downs. Again, this improves the capacity to an acceptable level of service for the 20-year traffic volumes. And then on the corridor on the Mexico 48 between Mescalero Trail and US 70, we would recommend repurposing that from a 4-lane road to having a single lane in each direction with a raised median and maintaining existing driveways at the existing location. Again, this will require design variance approval from the DOT. And then we would modify median access to limit the left turn lanes in accordance with the SAM spacing and to improve safety in that area. Signals will be installed at the Mescalero Trail, or the existing signal on Mescalero Trail will be revised to accommodate the new typical section. And then we recommend that a signal be installed inside. With this, I stand for any questions.
Questions?
This is Jackson. I just had one. In that area in section 4, will there be easy ingress and egress from the hospital parking lot? That's my main concern with this. I know you say you're going to maintain existing driveways, but we have 3 different facilities along that corridor. We have a hospital, we have the rehabilitation center. We're in the process of demolition of the old hospital. So that would be a question I might have.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, Councilor, what we looked at again was to make sure that we had adequate connectivity to the proposed medical center, which is what these driveways are based on. As you can see, there is a road that connects along the south side of that medical center, and that road would provide access to all of the businesses on the south side once they came off of the Mexico 48. The intersections that would be providing access to the medical center would be the full access intersection, which is located just left of the medical center. You can point that out, yeah, right in there. And then we would have a left in, right out that would provide access to the medical center so that anybody coming into the medical center could have access to it from any direction. When you're leaving the medical center, if you use that driveway, you would only be able to make a right-hand turn out. You would actually have to go to the intersection over to the west in order to get full access, or go over to Sutton, which is a signalized access, which is probably where most of the traffic that would be exiting would end up going to. And then we'd still have a right in, right out, just on the east side of the medical center, accessing the parking lot that would allow traffic coming from the downtown area to be able to use that right-in facility. And if you're leaving, you'd be able to make a right out of there and continue onto Mexico 48 East and get to US 70.
Okay, anyone else?
So I kind of agree. I can see how the high T will be an improvement over, in the next 20 years. But the corridor, section 4, so right now, when we get rain, the only way to make it through there is to get over in what people call fast lane, because the whole right side of that road floods out. So if you're going to be putting a raised median in that area, it's going to take some major rework for the flooding to be handled to get that out of that way. Otherwise, it's going to be completely impassable. The other thing is shrinking that down to 1 lane in each direction. Saturday, which wasn't even our busiest day in town here, I was heading down to Alamogordo, and from about Thomas B, which is just the other side of Mescalero, all the way to Paradise Canyon, was packed solid with cars in both lanes. So if we're going to reduce that down to 1 lane, you're going to have a major backup on the other end coming off of Highway 70, trying to get on to 48. Once they get down to 1 lane, you're fine, but you've got 2 lanes coming from 70 onto 48, and you're just going to create a massive traffic jam, I believe.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, yeah, we do know that the drainage in that area, we would have to make improvements, and those improvements might need to be looked at no matter what, because as you said, we know that the street does collect a lot of the flows, and there's really no storm drain in there today. The only outfall is over on the east side near the US 70 intersection. So any improvements that would be done in here, we would be taking a look at some sort of a storm drain system and a collection system to try to dry out the roadway as much as possible to comply with the NWOT criteria and also the local ordinances, trying to make sure that we clear those travel lanes during those storm events. So you're exactly right, and you do understand the value needed in improvements. In terms of the capacity, the 2-lane section, as it is today, has adequate capacity, and we're actually seeing some of the traffic going eastbound getting diverted onto Mescalero Trail today to get to US 70. So there is some of the traffic that gets off of that location. But the idea would be to try to improve traffic flow by creating the left turn restrictions that I identified here. Part of the problem with the downtown area and with any facility when there's 2 lanes is that there's no median, left turn median or refuge of a lot of the traffic that goes through the downtown area. And for that reason, you get people that are blocking the 2 lanes trying to make those left turns. So the idea for this configuration that we showed here is to get those left turn movements into their own lane and allow the through traffic to have free flow conditions.
I understand the concept, but there's really not that many cars trying to make left-hand turns to warrant justifying, shrinking it down. I still think you've got half as much space to put the same number of cars in. You're going to have a backup. We're going through the same thing in Midtown with the traffic plans there, and when you start shrinking down the road, it just creates problems. In my opinion.
It's looking forward to number of all those people.
Yeah.
So what's your alternative there, Kaufman? Leave it like it is?
Unfortunately, the way this town was laid out many years ago, there was never a concept of having the number of people in this town that we currently have. It'd be nice to wave a magic wand and go back and provide more space, but we're kind of restricted with what we have. And just because stuff works great in other areas, which I agree, I agree completely with this concept and the idea. We just don't have the space. I mean, unless we go in and condemn buildings widen the roadway, then I just don't see it working. I mean, you know what it's like trying to go to and from the track during the summer. You know, there's just and the track isn't even open this year, and traffic was horrible. Imagine what it's like when we're post-COVID, track's back open and we've got all those people trying to get to the track and then get back into town after the track closes. I just don't see it.
I just know that we've got to do something there off that Gatlin, here by McDonald's, Sonic, with the hospital, all that. Something has to be done for it because it's a dangerous, dangerous place.
Well, we've had different things that have happened there, getting onto Gatlin, coming off Highway 70. At one point, there were the glued down reflector posts, whatever you want to call them. I don't know what they're called. And those became, you know, for the big trucks, that became a fun time running them over and they break down. But, you know, whether there's a room to put a physical barrier in there, because people will get over in that far right-hand lane to go to Gatlin and then at the last minute cut back over, trying to get onto 48. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, we've also got the problem with people coming from 70, making the left onto 48, and then want to hurry up and cut across traffic to get to Walgreens and McDonald's and so forth. And that's been an issue that, you know, there's been tickets written for those kinds of people. And to me, the signage is ambiguous and confusing there. That, you know, that needs to continue on for, you know, again, something to prevent people from making that crossover in the lanes would help that traffic flow a little bit better. But, you know, like I said, to me, you've only got X amount of space and you've got to live within that space. And if we start shrinking down the traffic, I mean, it's like going into our water system and we're putting in what, 4-inch pipes, and you go in there and put a 1-inch pipe, you don't have any flow through those pipes.
Well, I mean, to me, that's not the same analogy. Right now, if you're shrinking it down, but you're continuously moving, and then if you can get somebody off of Gatlin, because that's the problem right there. They set, and then they dart. And then you almost have accidents there all the time. I've never seen a ticket written over there. I go through there every day.
I had one when I was the alternate judge.
How many years ago was that?
Before this, 6 years ago. I don't know what's happened.
It's probably the last one. But something we've got to, we don't have the option, I don't think, to sit back and to do nothing. I think we've got to figure out something, and it's going to be a hard choice. And it may be property condemned. It may be something having to be taken over is one thing I can. You're right, it's too small. Too small. I just don't see making a lane for bicycles. That's just inviting. It's tragedy.
Yeah.
To say here is the illusion of safety, but we've got to do some kind of traffic calming or something to be able to get people off of Gatlin across out of the hospital whenever that is turned over into parking lots.
I mean, that Gatlin entrance there, or right there by the Boots and Jeans, that can be shut down completely.
Well, that's a entrance. That's a alleviation to get them out of that area.
Yeah, but get out of that intersection, and then they can turn on Sutton.
You could have them go off down Gatlin, coming from the
But
east,
not come,
but then make them go on Sutton, where there'll be a light.
yeah, make it
To come
just a
back up.
one way off of 70. Because I've never had trouble like there.
Where are you talking about?
Yeah.
Coming from 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about coming from Gatlin and trying to get across 48 on 70. That right there's the other one's never an issue until you get on down. It's that.
Well, and the reason they come from Gatlin onto 48, that route, is because they don't want to get stuck at Sutton where it's a stop sign and good luck getting across traffic there.
But if they put
But if you put a light in there,
cure that.
it would have to be synchronized with whatever happens at that intersection with that high T.
That's awful right there.
Yeah. Because you don't want a green light on traffic to go through the T and then have a red light there at Sutton occurring at the same time. But the shrinking down from 2 lanes to 1 lane just like the other presentation, when you're in that corridor, traffic moves. Getting in and out of that corridor, I mean, look at it in Midtown right now. It's whenever there's a delivery truck, traffic backs up forever, and it gets really horrible because people don't just merge over in advance. They wait to the last minute to try and get as far as they can.
Don't forget Walgreens.
Oh, yeah, Walgreens, yeah. Yeah, and people cut, that's the other thing, is people cutting off of Sutton, at the Sutton and Gavin intersection, up through the back of the Walgreens, through Walgreens parking lot, to make either a quick right or go across to get onto 70 and head out towards Alamogordo.
And then they get frustrated and they just pull it out, go over the median.
Right.
Where they want to go.
That's why we have trucks.
The dealers do it really well.
Now, coming out of Walgreens parking lot, maybe that's a right turn only. That would eliminate those people that are trying to take that shortcut and bypass Sutton to head down 70.
That's a rough one.
Then where would you direct them to, if they're going back to the downs?
They've got to make their turn before that. They're going to have to come up. They'd have to come up Meander to Reese, or well, that's about the only way.
Well, we could make Mescalero where you can make a left hand turn.
Yeah.
Annual intersections are a problem.
Otherwise, I think you'll have a lot of people turning into the hospital parking lot. Where it turns out.
Correct. Or they're going to come down to Allsup's, cut through the Allsup's parking lot to take the Mescalero around to get back out to 70. So might as well just put realign that intersection and put a left-hand turn in there if possible. Something similar to what we have at Center Street, where the signal turns right, and the signal comes on and you can either go straight or turn left while that signal is green. That way you don't have to add an extra lane.
Keep working.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, I will say we did these trying to keep the existing curb and gutter dimensions. If you look at it, and if you want to eliminate the bike lane and the shoulder area that we identified and convert that to a through lane, you'd be looking at probably adding another 2 feet on each side in order to get the width that's needed and provide 2 lanes in each direction along with the median that is identified here. That may have some impact. If you would like us to take a look at that and identify what that would take, we can go back and make that as another option.
Is there any additional right-of-way space in that area? Because I know, once we get up into town, there's a lot of right-of-way that's there that the road could be widened quite a bit, but I don't know about down in that area.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, councilors, it's very tight in that area. We have done some preliminary research of the right of way and have identified that primarily around the intersection. In the corridor here, we would be impacting some of the existing parking lots and maybe even reducing the amount of parking spaces, for instance, in front of the Walgreens area and such, with any type of widening activity. So, but we can look at that and identify those impacts if you'd like us to take a look at that alternative.
Well, I think we need to keep willing on this deal because, like my previous statement, I just don't think we don't have an option. We've got to come up with something better because it's only going to get worse. And do you have any suggestions, Manager?
I'd have to look at the strategy. Well, I think that, a good suggestion there, that's why I know 48, we can configure that to make that more of a conducive for left-hand turns there, just jump off that one corner. And I just think with the control light there, Walgreens way too close to coming off, traffic coming off the Highway 70. What do you do when you have racetrack closed? I mean, open. Got all the traffic coming back in the town, and all the cameras up there in front of Walgreens. I do it now. But you He's got his class here, that's what
The light, if there was a light at 7, like he's talking about, for all the lines,
so they have.
that would work for Sutton to be able to get on. So you're next week with phone calls.
Yeah. But I already get a lot of phone calls about near misses and people worried about it, so.
It needs to be fixed.
Eric Albert,
Yes,
this is Ron, members of the council, Bert, if I would say if you could look at that area there, I mean, it is congested, and I know you guys are aware of that, just, with the McDonald's, some of the other places, people coming out of Walgreens, parking lot, making a left, it's just a bad area. I know we discussed, putting a, signal light at Sept in the past, UFP wasn't in favor of that, so I guess we would have to see that concept, see better, how you would be able to put a light there, not be too close to the, Highway 70 intersection light also.
Mr. Mayor, councilors and Ron, yes, sir, I think in our analysis, just to kind of go back to what was discussed earlier, the idea would be that those two lights would be synchronized, so that, they talk to each other and that, it would allow there not to be a backup, from Sutton back onto US 70 for the traffic coming from Ruidoso down going to the downtown area. So we have looked at that and we feel that the capacity would not create a queuing problem for that backup. And then, Ron, you're also correct, the spacing next to US 70, we would have to coordinate that with the next with the Department of Transportation and demonstrate to them the benefits of a signalized intersection at this location. The connection there at Sutton also provides accessibility to Galvin Canyon Road, which I think will help with some of the congestion that occurs there in front of the Walgreens area. But we can take a look at some of those things, maybe a little more detail than we have, and identify maybe if there's some options to this that would work.
Bert, also where the medical center is at, it's different locations. They built a new, it's constructed, it's a different location on the property also. I believe it's showing it to the older facility, not the new facility, which is closer to Sutton. That's great.
Okay. We appreciate your comments and your input. We're in the draft form now. We will take those comments and we will work with staff to create a final document that addresses your concerns. And we'll be presenting that back to you once we've completed the final.
Bert, just one more question for you is, are solid waste semis in Sutton, on route to the transfer station? Just need to find out if, the semis, if any of the configuration allowing the semi trucks to go in that area also. And, we can talk more about it later also, but thank you.
Yes, sir.
okay, next.
Just one last, this is Jackson, one last comment. Your emergency medical services are provided on the far east end of the hospital, which is about Sutton, basically.
Yeah.
Where the new hospital is. So there's a lot of traffic in and out of that area. And there would be also traffic from our EMS vehicles, because we sponsor those as well, so. And the doctor's offices, which are on that upper level. So I'm not trying to muddy the water, I'm just trying to get a perspective on what's going on with that hospital.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the input, and we will take that into consideration as we complete the analysis.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Bert.
There, the next is an update by Ian Associates, and here to present this is Randy is going to introduce them.
Okay, good afternoon, Mayor, councilors. I'm Randy King, Water Production Manager. This is in regards to the tabulation error in task order number 3 with Union Associates. Gresh Eckrich is here to speak about the task order number 3. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Gresh so he can explain it in better detail.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak. Like Randy mentioned, my name is Gresh Eckrich. I'm the project manager for Gaten Associates. We're the engineer on the village's dam improvements, compliance, and planning projects for the Grindstone and Alpha Lake dams. I sent an email last week that I believe Randy circulated this point to just explain the tabulation error in our cost estimate for task order 3, where all of the individual task costs were shown, but the summation of those costs was incorrect. And I sent, along with that email I sent to Randy, I sent a cost estimate with the correct tabulation of those costs. And I do apologize for the error. I take full responsibility, and my apologies to Randy and the administrative staff for any complications that it might have caused. But that additional, that revised cost went from $80,068 to $107,818. And there, as I said, the individual costs that were shown are the same on both the old cost estimate and the new cost estimate. It's just that the summation of those costs is now correctly tabulated. I'd just like to add that I'm excited that we are starting the project. Today, the survey is in progress, and like all of our projects, our goal is to finish this project in an efficient manner and cost-effective manner. And our hope is to finish under the revised total cost.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments to Gresh? We understand it was just an addition error. Okay, no? Okay, well, thank you, Gresh, for coming on and explaining that. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Mayor, just one last thing I'd like to report on is that the link survey is complete. We had 1,800 surveys completed, and of that, 1,493 of those were mail-in, and 316 were electronic submissions. So we're ready to also do a presentation on that to the governing body. So if I'm requesting a special meeting next week, I'd like to have Brian Sanderoff of Research and Polling actually present the results of the big survey to the governing body at that time as well. Okay? If that's okay with you all.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine next week.
I'm glad to hear there's a large number of mail-in ballots, because the online ballot was concerning me a little bit, because the only way to really identify if they were from Ruidoso, it says, are you a Ruidoso resident? And we know how people sometimes confuse Ruidoso for the greater area. So that's good. That's good that we got, that's pretty good response. Yeah, that's pretty good response.
Mayor, and just on the last part of my report, I'd just like to thank the Mayor and Council for the opportunity that I had to present to the municipal league and all of the municipalities that represent Ruidoso. I think, the highlights of being able to do that show the leadership comes down from the Mayor and Council and the active role that you all play. You don't see that in a lot of other communities. And so I just want to applaud you all on your efforts. And then, on the closing session, former governor, Gary Carruthers presented, and he recognized Ruidoso for their efforts as well. Well, good.
Yeah, the very first thing I noticed about is Ruidoso's doing a great job.
Awesome. It's nice to be recognized.
Yes. So with that, Mayor, that concludes my manager's report. Unless you have any questions.
Did anybody else have as a long manager's report? Anybody else have any questions, comments? No? Okay, we're getting a lot done. Thanks, Tim. Okay, we'll move into reports from municipal officials, and I'd like to start with Mayor Pro Tem. Do you have anything?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and councilors. It's great to be back in the meeting room. And thanks staff for lining all this up, but I'm gonna keep pushing for the convention center. That way I can have my own table and spread out and hang up all my grandkids' artwork that they've been doing in my house for the last 6 months. Anyway, Mayor, I listened in a little bit on the municipal league conference. It was really a challenge I could see for everybody on that. Just reminded me of just how difficult this technology is getting amongst everybody. But it was a good conference, at least the 2 sessions I heard. I did listen in, chime in on Tim, but then we were having difficulties on each side of that part. Good job, Tim, and including your team. I really appreciate that you called in your team to go up and do that. Once again, to all the departments, outstanding job on this past weekend. Went driving through Midtown in the afternoon and it Sunday afternoon, and it just looked like Ruidoso again. So that was very much. I didn't go out to the lake. I didn't want to chance that out at Grindstone or Alto. So I'll probably go out there next week. I do want to give the kudos. I was glad Billy was recognized for his work there because, as I said, with the grandkids, we're at Kids Connection 3 days out of the week. And every time I took those little girls to the restroom to use it, they were clean. They were outstandingly clean. And that's what I noticed from some of the other patrons that were there, even our visitors, that how nice the facilities are kept. Even in Midtown, one couple, they mentioned that how they appreciate our direction in sanitizing everything. Right. Thank the water department for all the water leaks repairs over the weekend that they tackled. And you remember this, Mayor, way back. It seemed every holiday we had a well go out, a tank emptied out, or I mean, it was ridiculous. And every holiday weekend that a major water line would go, but good job to RJU on accomplishing all that. That's all I kind of have for right now, Mayor, but I'm sure I'll think of some other stuff.
All right, thank you. Councilor Letterman?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick thank you to all the employees for doing extra duty this summer. I noticed that we're still going to continue it through September for Ruidoso Sept, but I do appreciate all their extra effort. I too listened to the New Mexico Municipal League convention and was so proud of Tim and his team for their presentation. And then when we were recognized for Ruidoso Sept, Chief Hooker, Chief Thetford, the Mayor, Jasmine, Justin Huffman, Tim, they all did such a great job. That was such a nice presentation. And then the icing on the cake was when Governor Gary Carruthers, the very first thing out of his mouth was how wonderful it was for Ruidoso to have a plan and this Ruidoso Sept program. And so I was very proud of our village, so thank you. Just a real quick, I don't know about where all of you live, but the trash is really bad on the outside of the dumpsters. And we talked about that before. I don't know if they're just so busy or where we've started something about picking up trash, and then people get used to us coming around all the time, picking up their toilets, their carpet that they're taking out of their houses. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And maybe it's just in my neck of the woods, I don't know. But it's everywhere, every dumpster is just, people are throwing things by the dumpster so that we come and pick them up. And we discussed having a site maybe, so I would really like to see us try to do something like that. And to our citizens, you know, if you can put it in the dumpster, please put it in the dumpster. That's so insightful. It's just, it makes us look very trashy. I don't like looking outside my window to a bunch of trash laying alongside the dumpster. And then I have a lot of complaints about noise after 10 o'clock. And I was just wondering if we could do something to bring back the time from 11 p.m. down to 10 p.m.
We are working on that right now.
Okay.
We're getting ready to do that.
Okay.
Did you call the police?
I've called the police in my area, and then I had several other people calling me about playing volleyball till 3:00 in the morning. They called the police came, and they quieted the music until the police left, and then the music started again, and then they went outside and played volleyball till 3:30. I don't think they called the police again, but and you know, we are a tourist community, but we do have citizens who live here, and we'd like to go to bed at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. So I just think that we need to be very careful about our citizens. We have to respect our citizens, and as well as allowing our tourists to have fun, but not at the expense of our citizens. So I appreciate it if you're gonna do something.
Well, we looked at it, and that's why on the short-term rentals, we've set up a policy where they are supposed to notify everybody in that area. So you know what? Managing company, so you call them first to get it shut down, and then you call the police. And maybe we're just being too lenient.
Well, the one lady did call, she ended up calling the person that owned the house, and it was directly behind them, and he said, basically tough. So I just think that we need to be cognizant of the people that live here all the time.
So it was a local that said tough.
Yes.
We'll work on it. We're still working on it, but we
I
talked about once.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And then we don't like handing out tickets, but maybe we'll have to start if we get compliance. It was pretty bad when the chief of police has to call his guys to come out and shut them down.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
There will have a drafted executive order on noise, for you by tomorrow.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Councilor Coughlin?
So what many people may not be aware of, unless you got kids, is today started the hybrid model in the Ruidoso schools. Meaning some of the kids are able to go back into school 1 or 2, well, this week, 1 or 2, but you know, basically 2 days a week, and then the other 3, they're out. Having dealt with since, what is it, August 19th, when the kids went into virtual mode, it does not work for a lot of these kids. You know, especially when the kid's given written instruction on the screen and the kid can't read to begin with. So it's important that we get the kids back into school in a safe environment and keep it that way. I deal with school districts both in Lincoln and Chavez County. Chavez County is not a green county. It's meaning that their schools can't go back into a hybrid mode yet. They're still stuck in virtual. So some counties like Doña Ana went from a green to a yellow or a red. meaning that they were getting ready to go back into school, and then all of a sudden, last minute, no, sorry, you're staying virtual. So the reason of saying this is I think that it's very important that we continue with all of the efforts that we're doing to keep the spread low within Lincoln County, so that we can stay green and we can get our kids back into the in-school environment where they're going to be able to learn better. Otherwise, their education is going to be stunted at least for a year, possibly even more. There's something called summer learning loss, and just think about it. This summer was 6 months long. So we've got double the amount of learning loss that we now have to make up for. And the reason for that is we went out for dinner this weekend and went to one of the local restaurants that we always enjoy. And I just sat there and looking around, and they were just completely not following any of the recommendations. And it's a shame, because that's the kind of stuff that can lead to an increased spread. It can lead to a business being shut down. And then they're going to turn around and complain. It's just follow the recommendations, wear your masks. In a restaurant situation, it's disposable, one-time use items, not putting the bottle of ketchup out there or leaving the salt and pepper there from table to table to table as people sit down. It's a pain for all of us, but if we just follow through on this, we can get this all behind us, and then we can move on. But it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about all the other people that are affected that we don't even think about. And the kids are being greatly affected by this, not being able to be back in an adequate learning environment. And thank you to all the people at the schools that are working so hard to make this happen. It's not perfect, it's not smooth, but they're working hard to try and get past all those. So that's my little rant for today and what I have to say.
So what would you do?
Notice it's less than Susan's. I'm shorter than Susan.
For one.
Yeah.
So what would you do? So sitting in the restaurant like you were, so how do you go about, because we're asking, we're obviously trying to make up for some lost revenue and things like that. They're trying to pay their bills. So what would you say, just to continue to ask, or are you leaning towards the camp that says we need to start writing tickets for this stuff?
I personally will not go back to that restaurant until the whole COVID thing is all done. That's me, and these restaurants, we're done with our tourists, and we need to remember that during the shoulder seasons and during the slow periods, it's the locals that help them out. I understand life is difficult, but when you have a manager blatantly not wearing a mask, sitting people at the tables, people coming out of the restaurants, carrying their drinks, smoking underneath the dining room tents. I mean, it's just obvious stuff, and people just aren't paying any attention to what needs to be done. And so for me, I'm not going to say which restaurant it was, but if it was a server making a mistake, okay, fine, I probably would have gone up to the manager and said something. But this was management that was allowing these things to happen. And I, for one, will not, Beth and I talked about it, we're just not going to go back and patronize that restaurant until everything's done.
So let's say, does this restaurant have a tent provided by the village?
I do not know the names of all the restaurants that have received tents from the village.
Okay, but I mean, would you be advocate of us posting those, that if you want our tent, that you need to be, because there's a COVID safe designation for restaurants now that's coming out, that we're going to start asking these people to comply with, that say we are all of that. So I mean, they're not going to do it on their own, Counselor. We've asked till we're tired of asking. And you're right, we don't want to go back. We don't want to. Some people say we're stunning the businesses if we're try to push these things or keep them going. But if we don't, then it could really stun them if we have an outbreak. So we need to work on it. So thank you for volunteering for this committee that you and Susan are going to join me on. And we'll come up with
I'd be happy. It's frustrating when the village is going way outside of our normal scope of work to help these people with the Ruidoso Safe, with providing tents for businesses, with doing all this, and then they kind of just go ahead and do their own thing. let's work together on this and follow the simple rules that are put forth. And I'm sure they know the rules because the environmental health department is sending out emails to everybody who has a health permit, notifying you what those rules are, especially for restaurants. And that certification, it is going even further than just restaurants. There's other classifications because I've contacted them and my classification is not one that can be certified yet. But yeah, Justin had sent out emails to people about that. And it's something that, yeah, absolutely. I think that people should be proactive and educate themselves even further in getting that certification.
Because I do know, talking with the hospital, they are highly concerned about the flu/COVID breakout in the winter, and we certainly don't need that.
No, the flu is, it's every year when school starts back up. And I'll tell you, the last year prior to being shut down in March 13th or whatever it was, we were sending home one kid a day with a fever. That came from school to the Boys and Girls Club. So, I mean, it is prevalent out there. And what's going to happen, and Gary can attest to it, is a lot of the COVID symptoms are, we say flu-like symptoms. So now they're going to get flu, and they're going to take up more resources trying to determine whether it's flu or COVID, and it's going to bog down our healthcare system tremendously.
Manager, if you'd help assign somebody to get that information from Justin Huffman, so we can get it out to businesses, and then I'll get with these two. We'll set up a time, come up when it's convenient for them, start getting something that's proactive to reach back out to our businesses, to talk to them, to just because everybody's getting tired of this. Personally, I'm more out over it, but that we need to reinvigorate ourselves to be mindful and be diligent and not to get too lackadaisical.
Their council, that the online survey that you have to take to become certified, only takes about 10 minutes. And so is that, and it goes over the COVID safe practices and whatnot. But is that something that we want to maybe make as part of a point system for the paradigm?
Well, and that's where we're headed with this, and I was going to talk to these guys about that we do discuss that, and then we come back to the rest of the council to present our conclusions, our directions, suggestions, whatever that we possibly do, but we're going to have to get on the stick because we want to get this money out to these businesses as soon as possible. But that we do make it a criteria that they understand that if they are asking for up to $20,000 or whatever, that we've got them that they help us comply and be an example and whatever. So we'll talk about it.
Well, and I've asked not to be a part of that committee for various reasons, but that certification process only covers defined segments of business. So if you're going to give points to that, not every business would fall under that, the ability to become certified. So that's something to consider.
If it applies. Is there anything else?
No. I was done a long time ago.
Okay, Councilor Cornelius.
I want to respond to on your noise study.
Yes, sir.
I hope they do change it to 10 o'clock. But like the guy that told you tough for those that were playing volleyball like that, Darren's told us that first time is a warning. Second time is a ticket. The ticket's when it affects the owners. So encourage them to call the second time. And the other thing is encourage everybody to know with wireless census. We're having terrible response on that.
It says what, 25% now?
Something like that, or lower.
I think I heard what, 31st out of 34 counties.
Can second owners fill out a census for us if they've already filled out a, okay.
Well, I mean, they're not counted in that portion of it. And I know a lot of them have been hit up about that, have received it at their second home. So.
Right. They were actually canvassing the houses. They wanted to see if you had signed up. So it was written with how. I don't know how much.
What I heard is some of the second homeowners are staying here longer
Yeah.
because of COVID back wherever they're from, is as long as they're a resident here at a specific time, then they would count here rather than back at their home.
Yeah, but you gotta change your voter registration, your driver's license, declare your residence.
Sure, but
That's,
Good. Anything else, Councilor?
no, just getting, like I talked to all my guys who are working on it. We don't here, your kids have one now.
Councilor Jackson?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and other councilors. I just want to really emphasize the fact that in view of some of the other discussions, that the flu vaccine should be given and should be taken now. Because unlike other times, you're not going to be able to get a flu vaccine and a COVID vaccine back to back. They're going to require probably 2 weeks, maybe a little more between those vaccines. Why? So that you'll have the right response to it. Under the best of conditions, I think various estimates are that the COVID vaccine will probably be effective up to 60% of the time. Why? Because it's an RNA virus and it can change, unlike our other vaccines, which are DNA and don't change. But even given that, I think that for the people at risk, it's excellent that everyone get one. I think the rollout, according to Dr. Grace, probably will start in early November, but then it will be categorized by those at high risk, and healthcare providers, fire, police, all of them, and nursing homes will all be taken into account. And I realize there's going to be a supply and distribution issue as well. So we're already looking at the hospital and other places and having drive-through for immunization, not COVID vaccinations, just flu, anticipating what we might be looking at down the road. I wanted to also say that I was very impressed with our municipal league presentation of the three. I thought it was the most professional, and the other thing was that it kept your attention. I think Chief Hooker has a radio voice. I think it went off very, very well. Ruidoso Safe staff, I think we might have gotten dock points because of our approach, but I still think that education trumps punishment every time. And I think it was the right decision for the right reason for this community. I wanted to give a shout out to the mayor. I don't think he slept well since April. And through his other responsibilities and through this unusual, very unusual summer with the track, not enough can be said. And I looked at the call outs. I mean, they were very busy over this last 2 weeks. Also to the village manager and the staff, and dogs and others. If it hadn't been for their dogged application of the CARES Act funding, we would have never prevailed like we did. And you don't believe it, look what they did to the Downs for little or no activity. And I'm not saying anything against the Downs, I'm just saying this is money, people. And rounding up, it actually benefited us, the village, $2.7 million, and for the businesses, at $1.1 million. I don't think that can go without a little bit of attention and thankfulness. Parks and Rec, I mean, for all of you, every day, but the Aldo and Grindstone Lakes are a reflection of that hard work. Where I live near the dog park, and although we haven't had any athletic events, but still, the fields look pristine like they're ready to be used. Also for the tents for the businesses, showing that we're trying to support everything for everybody that we can. And I think for a village of 7,000, we did a damn good job. That's all I have.
Thank you. I agree with everything you said. All right. Councilor Lance, Stevie?
I just concur with everything that's been said. Everybody's done a great job. And also the businesses, residents, really also for working through these times here and finding ways to adapt and to keep the business going the right way. And it was a great presentation that you all put together for the conference, and very well put together. The others were interesting, but they were definitely, well, I'm not doing no bias, but we didn't hold count with y'all's presentation. And so thank you all for that. And with that, I just shout out to the village as a whole. I want to just the departments and the workers, but also the residents and the businesses. Good.
I'll say that, contrary to some people's opinion, we do appreciate the emails, the contacts, the phone calls, those things, and we do try to respond. I know I'm a little bit behind right now, and I'll get caught up this week on responding to emails and those kind of things. And we're, we're not all in a group think here. It's always been advocated that if it's all group think, somebody's not thinking. So we have different opinions and different ideals, and we like to hear those coming from businesses, and I appreciate that. I just ask that if you send us something, please put your name on it. We get stuff all the time. Sometimes I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic or if you're just that mean, but one of the things is just put your name on there so we can at least talk to you in a sensible manner and maybe address your concerns. So anyway, so we're going to move on. We have a public hearing, and we have, I believe that we've been asked to go ahead and move that.
Mayor, we have, Zach Cook.
Okay.
I'd actually like to ask Zach Cook to step in, don't step out for a minute so you can have that conversation there.
Okay. Zach Cook, can you please come into the council chambers?
I'd like to get called to the principal's office.
Okay, Jeffrey's gonna, our IT guy, stay in our guidelines.
And just Zach, leave your office.
We should be here, Roy Toronto. But this is the appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to deny case number SP 2020-0289, Jesse Townsend applicant, 525 Resort Drive, James Townsend, tract 1A, designation of property to CPUD commercial plan unit development with site plan and concept approval to include campground with recreational activities within a 5-acre tract. This was continued from August 11th, 2020 regular council meeting. Yes, sir, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. Since your last meeting, when Mr. Townsend and his attorney, Mr. Griffin, were here and they agreed to continue it, I have had several conversations, email conversations, mostly with Mr. Townsend and some with Mr. Griffin as well. We're working with him still over in the community development department to allow Mr. Townsend to do whatever it is with his property as long as it's in compliance with the village code, of course. And we're not there yet, but we've had a lot of movement, and based on some of the email conversations I've had with Jesse, I was under the assumption that they were not going to go forward with the appeal. And then Mr. Griffin called me this morning and said he didn't want to lose the appeal, but Mr. Townsend's out of town and he asked for another continuance. So I called Irma and we discussed the rules on it, and just out of courtesy, lawyers typically, whenever there's a court setting or whatever, you can call on and say you agree with continuance or whatever. So I told him I didn't have a problem with that, and based on Irma's research of the rules of order, we felt like that was an okay situation to grant it. And then he followed up with an email to me that I think you guys should hear. He says, as you recall, we asked for continuance of the August 11th appeal hearing because we felt we could make progress by compromising negotiation. We feel we have made significant process, and he underlines the word have, I guess, to emphasize that he believes that we are making progress in our negotiations with helping Jesse, Mr. Johnson, come into class. So that to conduct today's hearing as an appeal might be premature. We understand that we will now be placed on the agenda for the next regular meeting of the council around October 15th. In the event that our progress stalls between now and then, we hope that is their understanding as well. So, long story short, they wanted a continuance, but they're still working with in good faith with Samantha and me, Jesse. And I had to explain to him that I can't help him write the application. That would be an obvious conflict, but if I can talk to Leanne, and your ordinances say in chapter 54 that by the person Sam's position. So, you know, I can talk to Liam, the lawyer, and help him, you know, work through what it is that's required. So hopefully we'll continue, and Mr. Townsend will be in compliance and doing something correct with this property. But as for now, we're continuing that. Hopefully we won't have to come back.
Well, I mean, I understand that, I'm here, y'all are here, I just was a little surprised that, because I thought this was, we were wanting to make some progress, or they were. On this, I certainly am glad that we're making progress to get to a conclusion that we could all agree on. Does anybody else have any comments or whatever?
So given the appeal process, by delaying it now another month, does that affect that process, or because the two sides are agreeing to extend it, then everything's okay?
Yeah, everything's fine procedurally, because his next step, if you guys were to have the appeal hearing, you were to uphold the P and Z's denial, his next step would be to go to district court, which is, you know, no good for anybody ever, hardly ever. And so, you know, I couldn't, in good faith, like if he filed an appeal at district court, I couldn't at that point say that he failed to, you know, follow procedures down previously. We have to have, I don't think, any additional decision on it. So it's all fine procedurally.
So I'm wondering what happens if in the next 30 days, the process continues, trying to come to some kind of resolution, and then they decide that, no, we want to extend it again. Would we almost, you know, I don't know what everybody would feel in October if that happens, or would it be kind of another alternative would be to just, and I don't know the process for it, but you just set it all aside, and when they're ready, let them apply again, and then we put it on the schedule for a public hearing.
The appeal?
Yeah. Because this was scheduled for this date 30 days ago, and now, from what I'm understanding, Mr. Townsend, knowing that it was scheduled for today, is out of town and unable to do it. So it's almost like, okay, get your ducks in a row, come back to us, let us know when you want to reschedule it, and then we'll go through the process again, bring it on the agenda for the request to schedule a public hearing, and then schedule a public hearing.
Right, you're wrong. I'm wrong at one point, one time, I'll take the particular item that came up. Did you not state, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I remember the word. You stated that you could postpone twice, and after that, so the books. So this would be the first, and the next time around, that if there's no action taken, then just move it on.
I mean, proper members of the governing body, like Zach mentioned, we did look specifically at the Robert's Rules of Order, which is what our governing body follows according to our open meetings section. And the Robert's Rules of Order specifically states that if there is a extraordinary circumstance, so you could continue, you could still postpone the item, but it has to be an extraordinary circumstance, and it has to be done within the 3-month period. So, for instance, if you guys had a meeting, I'm just picking a month, in February, but you could not postpone the item till, to May, because that's outside of that 3-month period. So it's very specific to that 3-month period. Otherwise, then we have to go through the process that Councilor Coughlin is indicating, where they would have to go through the application process, come to you guys to request another public hearing, and then we would have to re-advertise. So it would start the process over, unless.
Mayor, just one thing, if I may. I believe that if the application fails, they have to wait a year before you can reapply in the same, requesting the same action. If not, yes, you can have, if he's gonna reapply within a year, he has to have substantial change to his application.
But does this fall under what you described as?
It's not extraordinary.
Yeah, extraordinary circumstances. because he's out of town, that to me is not extraordinary circumstances.
Isn't this the second time too that he?
This would be the second.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
I think that Zach thinks they're making progress. That I wouldn't mind seeing it go. And I think that he could file again if he made his application where it would pass, that would be a major change. That may not work.
I'm sure, I believe he does want to reapply and has a substantial change of what he's proposing.
So if he's reapplying, couldn't he withdraw his application and reapply and not have to wait for 1 year because it didn't fail?
Would it still, but then it would have, since it was a dramatic change, would he not have to go back for public?
You'd have to go back.
What he's approaching, he doesn't, I think what he's wanting to do is hold his cards on this and see if he can work through a new proposal that he's putting together. Just taking the high road there, my recommendation is to allow continuance on it, and it means that Zach has stated, professional courtesy to, his colleague. I would recommend that we allow that.
We're all for business development and doing it correctly, all that, and I think it'd be beneficial to work through the process, because I know the neighborhood over there would appreciate a thorough review of all that. So,
You need a motion to postpone from this month?
I'm going to put a motion.
Mayor Crawford, members of the governing body, yes, if the desire is to postpone it, I would suggest making that motion to that specific date, which the meeting in
13th.
October would be the October 13th.
Okay, I make a motion to postpone the appeal of planning commission decision to now case. What is the outcome?
Yes, sir.
SP /2020 -0289, Jesse Townsend, alternate. 25, Resort Drive, James Townsend, tract 1A, there is motion corrected.
hold on, Samantha, can you mute your microphone?
Commercial plan, unit development, with set plan of concept approval for the cruise campground, relocation, and recreational activities within a 5 acre tract. To September 13th, council meeting.
October
13th, regular council meeting.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Okay, we have a second by Susan. Any other discussion?
I just said,
Yes, sir.
I just had a question, so I might know the process a little better. Irrespective of when we see this or evaluate it again. If in the application, and I'm regularly referencing page 6 of this application, there was a request to use almost 6 waivers against the ordinance as we know it today, which means we didn't have an ordinance, or if we did, why did we have it? That's my personal opinion, not a judge. What I'm asking is, in those situations where someone does apply for a waiver, is it at the discretion of, say, someone with the office of Samantha to make that determination as to whether those waivers can be approved or not, or does it come back to the body?
Their, council, variants are usually granted by the planning and zoning board. And if any of the affected parties want to appeal, then it would come to the council. And in this case, since it was a designation, the final decision lies within the council. The designation of a PDC.
And so not speaking for anyone on the P and Z, I would see that there was some concern about that since it was voted down 4-2. So in these negotiations that are ongoing, are some of those issues being addressed? I guess is my open question.
Yes.
If it's appropriate to ask.
And of course, it's appropriate to ask, and yeah, they are. PUD, I'm starting to make progress in convincing Mr. Griffin and Mr. Townsend that PUDs are not, they're not small things. In my time here, PUD applications have included, I think, the ski chalet, I remember many years ago, and then the City Bank building downtown. I mean, those are major developments, and that's all PUD stuff. And I guess their interpretation up to date has been that it's my land and I want to designate it as a commercial PUD. which is fine, but there is certainly a pretty complicated process that goes along with it.
Thank you. There's no mistake.
Wait, Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Zach, on this, the appeal is on the PUD. Is that right?
Correct, on the designation as a commercial.
So if we agree with and grant the PUD designation, he'll still have to go back to P and Z for all his improvement plans.
Correct.
Mr. Griffin seemed to indicate if we granted it, he could do anything he wanted to, and that wasn't my.
You can do it once it is in compliance with the ordinance.
Okay.
So the appeal is based on the application which went to P and Z and was denied. If he's going through and making substantive changes to the application, doesn't that need to go back to P and Z anyways? So really, if
depends.
because really, if he's going through and making changes to his application, that's not what P and Z ruled on, so we have no, in my opinion, we have no reason to hear an appeal on that. So if we're doing an appeal, that's on the application, but if he's in the process of rewriting a new application, that's why I'm saying that this whole appeal just needs to be put aside and let them do what they need to do, get their ducks in a row, and then go back through the process.
Council, I think what the requesting is to try to, keep this appeal process, the application alive and see if they can work to these other processes.
If they want their cake and eat it too.
And if they can't work through these other processes, then they want to appeal it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, roll call please, ma'am.
Councilor Eby?
Aye.
Councilor Letterman? Aye. Councilor Salas?
Aye.
Councilor Conklin?
No.
Councilor Cornelius?
Aye.
Councilor Jackson?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see that again on October 13th. Thank you, Zach.
Good. Thank you, Mayor Council.
Regular item number 1, discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution 2020-34, a resolution establishing policy for the agendas and procedures for regular meetings, special meetings, emergency meetings, and workshop meetings of the governing body of the village of Ruidoso. And I think there's a specific reason why we were doing this, of course. So, Mr. Dodge, would you give us a brief poignant description?
Mayor, one of the biggest changes that I recommended is allowing us to add executive session to our workshop meetings. And that way we didn't have to recess a workshop meeting to discuss the executive session item and call a special meeting. Mr. Van, you want to cover the other changes? There's just a few.
Mayor Comfort, members of the governing body, Mr. Judge, I believe the only other change we made at this point was the order of business under regular meetings. We moved the boards and commissions to be up front, towards the front portion of the meeting, so that when there are appointments, people don't have to wait. And even though the mayor, is given the ability to move that agenda around during the meeting, having that order of business established under your resolution is a good practice.
Okay. Any other questions on this? And then we'll have a resolution.
I have a
Yes, sir.
question or
Councilor Salas?
question on that. Since we are adding a closed session to the workshop, doesn't the workshop have a time limit of 2 hours?
Mayor Crawford, members of the governing body, Councilor Salas, it used to have the 2 hour limit,
Okay.
and that is no longer, we did away with that, I
That's what I
believe.
just wanted to be sure of.
Yes, sir, I think it was removed back in November when it was amended.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Good pick up. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. So we get a motion on this?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution 2020-34, A resolution establishing policy for the agendas and procedures for regular meetings, special meetings, emergency meetings, and a workshop meeting of the governing body of the village of Ruidoso.
Okay, we have motion second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Yes. Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Eby,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman, Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius.
Okay. Item number 2, discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution 2020-35, a resolution declaring the intent of the village of Ruidoso, New Mexico to consider for adoption an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of the village of Ruidoso, New Mexico general obligation bonds, series 2020, the bonds to enlarge, improve, and or extend the village's water system, providing that the bonds will be payable from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property without the limit as to the rate or amount, engaging Hilltop Securities, Inc. as municipal advisor and Mayoral Sterling Law Firm as bond counsel for the village to assist the village with the issuance and sale of the bonds. And that would be Judy.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is a resolution that advertises our intent to issue our deal bonds later this calendar year, probably in December. The voters they did approve the continuation of our deal bond cycling where we issued $1.5 million of general obligation bonds that are going to be used for our water infrastructure projects. This is the first series from the last election. And again, it'll be issued closer to December. If you have any other questions, we go ahead and take them.
Judy, just to be clear that the way this is structured, it does not increase the tax rate to our residents.
No, it is stated about 1.5 mils.
Okay, any other questions? Need a motion, please?
I move that we accept the resolution 2020-35, a resolution declaring the intent of the village of Ruidoso, New Mexico to consider for adoption an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of the village of Ruidoso, New Mexico general obligation bonds, series 2020, the bonds to enlarge, improve, and or extend the village's water system, providing that the bonds will be payable from ad valorem taxes levied on all taxable property without the limit as to rate or amount, engaging Hilltop Securities, Inc. as municipal advisor and the Mayoral Sterling Law Firm as bond counsel for the village to assist the village with the issuance and sale of the bonds.
Second. Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Yes. Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius, Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Okay, awesome, thank you, guys. Item number 3, discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution 2020-36, a resolution authorizing and approving the submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, NMFA, for the purpose of constructing and equipping a magistrate court facility. Judy.
Yes, Mayor, this is another resolution advertising that we are going to complete an NMFA application for the construction of the magistrate court. Our George Williford had prepared the application, and this is just the intent for us to send it off to NMFA.
Mayor, if I may add.
Yes, sir.
Previously, when we were talking about this issuance, we had talked about leveraging or utilizing some of our gross receipts tax to back these bonds. We have found out that the New Mexico Finance Authority has additional debt capacity, and that we won't have to use the gross receipts tax to back these.
That's awesome.
So will the application be modified then, because it's still showing a subordinate pledge of 0.25%?
Yes.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Mayor, Ron, I do believe that you actually got the revised resolution, if I'm not mistaken, Ron.
There are proper members of the council, yes, the revised, application. The resolution remains the same, the application has been changed by, financial advisor submitted to the finance authority.
So the one we have is not the application.
Correct, Mayor Crawford, Council Crawford, the new application, did not have the gold piece tax as the secondary credit.
Okay. You want a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll move to adopt resolution 2020-36, a resolution authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority for the purpose of constructing and equipping a magistrate court facility.
Second.
Okay, no further discussion. Roll call, please, ma'am.
Councilor Coughlin,
Aye.
Councilor Jackson,
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
Aye.
Councilor Letterman. Aye. Councilor Salas,
Aye.
Councilor Canunes.
Okay, item number 4, discussion and possible action on adoption of resolution 2020-37, a resolution supporting general obligation bond issue C to benefit Eastern New Mexico University Ruidoso to receive $1.5 million to design, construct, renovate, and equip infrastructure at its facility in Lincoln County. And we have President of BNMU here, Ron Trosper, who I want to apologize for missing the meeting this morning at 9 o'clock. I apologize and look forward to getting back over there. But Dr. Trosper, it's up to you.
Mayor and members of the council, thank you for letting us bring this resolution forward to you. Before I talk about the resolution, I just wanted to introduce myself. Officially the new president over here at Eastern, and wanted to especially give a thanks to Susan Letterman, who was part of the committee, the hiring committee for the presidential search. And so that means a lot to us here that the village supports the college, and we really want to support the village. And so also Steve Lesterjet is also on the call, who is our chief external affairs officer. So with that, what's before you today is a statewide bond initiative. It's called Bond C, which is a general obligation bond just for higher ed, which supports infrastructure projects throughout the state. And so all that we're presenting before you today is this resolution in support of the $1.5 million that we have within this $156 million for the state. With this bond in November, there will not be any new tax, so it wouldn't raise property taxes. But what it would really do for our campus, as you see, our campus is under construction right now. That was part of what I showed to some village members, the council, or to the mayor's staff this morning. And I would invite any of the other council to come look at our construction if you want. But we finished phase 1, which is what we finished this July, and then phase 2 was the bond that was supported by a local vote last November. And then what this will do through the statewide bond is finish the exterior of the project, which is a phase 3 portion. So our project here on Beecham would essentially be completed at that point through this funding. And so we just appreciate the village's support, and I will take any questions at this time. Or if Steve has anything to add that I missed.
Okay, does anyone have any? Go ahead, is that Mr. Lester, Jeff?
No.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, it was actually myself, Ron, and Zach Cook that went and viewed the facility this morning. They're doing an amazing job there. It's just a beautiful facility. It's going to be something that we're all going to be proud of. But they're doing a good job on it. Awesome.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ryan. And so if we can get a motion in support of this, please.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt resolution 2020-37, a resolution supporting general obligation bond issue C, benefit Eastern New Mexico University Ruidoso to receive $1.5 million to design, construct, renovate, and equip infrastructure at its facility in Lincoln County.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion?
I would just like to say in front of all of you that the committee we had 51 applicants for the president, and we felt like Ryan was the best person. So we're very excited, Ryan. Congratulations.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks for those kind words.
Awesome.
So we need to make an appointment to come and view the facility, or your remodeling, or just pop in?
Either way, with COVID, we're not always here full staff, so the easiest way is to work through Nicole De Lorenzo, who's the executive assistant to the president, and then she can schedule you, and I'd love to give anyone a tour. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please, ma'am.
Councilor Jackson,
Aye.
Councilor Letterman.
Aye.
Councilor Salas,
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin,
Aye.
Councilor Cornelius,
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
All right, thank you, folks. Thank you, Ryan, appreciate you.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
just offer, the bond, we can't help facilitate those, anytime for you all. So if you'd like to go, just ask if you want to schedule up for you, to get it coordinated. All right.
Item number 5, discussion and possible action on letter of financial commitment to Zia Therapy Center for fiscal year 2021 and 22 to provide public transportation within the village of Ruidoso in the amount of $51,986.11. Ron, are you going to be taking that one?
Yes, Mayor Crawford, members of the council, all begin on this item for consideration. This is the annual letter of financial commitment. This is for fiscal year 21-22. This is to provide public transportation within the village of Ruidoso. This is supporting Zia Therapy. Their intent to apply for the 49 USC section 5311 with the Federal Transit Aid Fund. I will now turn this over to Sharon. I believe I see her on the screen. I don't know if Bill is with her, but I'll let Sharon explain more on this financial commitment letter. Thank you, Sharon.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members and Ron. Yes, Joe's not here yet, but to his doctor's appointment, so I have to apologize for him. But this is a requirement from NMDOT of public transportation. When we submit a grant for 13 months out, they need a financial commitment. And so that's what this letter is saying, and it's all due to the minimum wage phase-in of minimum wage. This is going to be for year 3. And so that's why the increase to $51,986.11. And for the Ruidoso area, we have 3 partners, which is Ruidoso Downs, Village of Ruidoso, and the Mescalero Apache Tribe. The other 2 partners have already agreed to the financial commitment and stuff, and so we're waiting on your letter. And this provides public transportation for the communities in which we serve up in Lincoln County, as well as Otero and into Donahue County.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Everybody understand what we're doing? Okay. Can we get a motion, please, to support?
Mr. Mayor, to approve the letter of financial commitment to Zia Therapy Center for fiscal year 2021/2022 to provide public transportation within the village of Ruidoso in an amount of $51,986.11.
Okay, we have a motion second. Anything else to discuss? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Councilor Jackson,
Aye.
Councilor Cornelius,
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin,
Aye.
Councilor Salas,
Aye.
Councilor Letterman.
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
Okay, item number 6, discussion and possible action on remodel, expansion, and building addition Village Hall in the amount of $1,309,239.50, including grocery receipts tax through Cooperative Educational Services, CES agreement with White Sands Construction, and Mr. Santa.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, this item for consideration, is for the office additions here at Village Hall, including on the wings of the planning and zoning section, adding on to the executive suite, new bathrooms, the addition of new bathrooms, new IT room upstairs, remodeling the boiler room, and reconfiguring the area where the current water building is at, where our finance director's office is at, and our first staff, having a secured entrance into that area, also having sections of that area there for other staff members to meet with having arrangements with other, say, builders or whatnot, having like a whole few area there that we can support our constituents, the planning and zoning, or any other business that we have. This building here, it was again, if awarded, with White Sands Construction, the CBS contract, the schedule to begin the end of September, early October on construction phase. This will also include the building, the foundation area of the building, and the daily house. So I'll stand for any other additional questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions from Ron? We realize that this money's already been budgeted in line item 320,302,53,000. And it'll be nice to have some of the sewer lines fixed. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we need a motion, please.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the remodel, expansion, and building addition of Village Hall in the amount of $1,309,239.50, including grocery receipts tax, to Cooperative Education Services, CES, agreement with White Sands Construction.
Second. Okay, no discussion? Roll call, please, ma'am.
Councilor Cornelius?
Aye.
Councilor Eby?
Aye.
Councilor Letterman? Aye. Councilor Salas?
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Jackson?
Aye.
Good, thanks, folks. Item number 7, discussion and possible action on a remodel of new radio station building project located at 2811 Sutter Drive in the amount of $138,609.15, including gross receipts tax through Cooperative Educational Services, CES agreement with Rymark Construction, Inc. And I know we all had a little sticker shock on this one.
There.
Yes, sir.
Our recommendation is to table this item or do a continuance on it. We've had some discussion with the proposed contractor and offered some suggestions on how we could bring down the cost.
Okay, so what would be the, to just postpone it? Okay, we'll postpone it to the September 13th meeting. October. So do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Yes, I need a motion to postpone item number 7.
Mr. Mayor, I move to postpone item number 7, discussion and possible action on remodeling the new radio station building project located at 2011 Sutter Drive in the amount of $138,639.15, including GRT to the CES agreement with Rymark Construction Incorporated to October 13th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Not up. Roll call, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Councilor Jackson?
Aye.
Councilor Eby? Councilor Letterman? Aye. Councilor Salas?
Aye.
Councilor Coughlin?
Aye.
Councilor Cornelius?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, folks. Item number 8, discussion on reimagined reduction in traffic lanes in Midtown. So, is this Samantha going to start this?
Mayor, I'm gonna present this one. I'm gonna be brief this time. I gave a more in-depth presentation at the workshop meeting. Mayor, my recommendation on this, there is no action at this time. My recommendation is that we consider the information that has come out of the plan that I see some value in. For instance, the crosswalks, additional parking in the Midtown area, sidewalk improvements needed badly in the Midtown area, safety concerns throughout the whole surveys that we received both from the people that conducted their own separate survey and our survey showed that there's current condition, safety concerns both on Rio Street and Greenfield. So my recommendation there is that those items be brought back to strategic planning at the end of the year, and that we develop a plan to work on those areas that came up as a result of the surveys that were conducted. Both surveys were pretty much in concurrence with each other to show that the public is not want to go to a 3-lane project. So it's not our recommendation to move to 3 lanes, but it is our recommendation to study these other areas of concern and address them in the future.
Because we do have issues on Wingfield, primarily already, that we need to figure out how to address those things. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, so everybody can agree with that. Anybody have any comments?
A lot of my calls on the Winfield speeding have all gone up with the village trucks.
Well, and we've discussed that with Adam. I don't know if he's on the list. I know we had another water leak that this guy's on, but we have already touched base with Adam and those guys over there about reminding those trucks. We've had a conversation with Chief Hooker about we have a speed sign over there, but I think that the slang is we need to start hanging some paper on some of these speeders, which means they need a ticket. And it seems to be locals that are going through there, and if it's village trucks, then they need to be treated just like everyone else because we've asked. And I know that's tricky through there. We need better signage. That's one of the things that's come out. That the speed limit in some places is 15, and I think in others it's 20. But it's hard to distinguish that, so we've got to work on all those things. And so we'll be addressing those next month. Next meeting.
There will be addressing those for strategic planning meetings, which normally happen at the beginning of the.
Okay. So we won't be doing anything except for getting the police to, and we'll be working internally with our department to make sure they are aware that they need to be very slow.
That's correct. And there are some signage issues that we can address that currently budget for.
Okay. Any other comments, yes, sir?
I got 2 comments. One is, one of the items that people who've been calling me is, and I noticed in this item discussion, it talks about the economic impact of the virus. Because we're putting this off to our strategic planning meeting at the end of the year, basically, is there was concerns that it was being pushed through due to COVID, and now it's being pushed along for the future, for safety and whatnot. Just from a semantic standpoint, if we could stop referring to the COVID part of this, because it's not really going to benefit anybody until possibly next summer if we're still in that situation. The other thing is hearing about the village vehicles. I would like to see us consider putting some type of identifying markers on the vehicles. Because even as I'm driving around, sometimes I can't identify the driver. And if there's some type of identifying, if it's the water department W102 or something like that, and it gives people an opportunity that if they do see somebody driving unsafely or have a concern about it, that they could call and report it, and then we could do the investigation into what's happening. There was a time that I ended up calling in for one of our village vehicles. And it's like, well, the person is driving down this road at this time, couldn't see who it was, could you tell anything about it? And I was able to identify a ladder sticking out the back of a truck or something, and finally got to didn't know which department it was, and they were able to figure it out that way. But maybe if there were some types of identifiers on the vehicles, that might help a little bit to So then get to know who the people are that need to have a talk with.
But just put your mom in my help.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as you don't go up on my truck, I can't say I'm always innocent.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna have 3 lanes, so it's just those things that have been identified through this process, the survey, sidewalks, that kind of stuff that we're gonna work on in our strategic planning, not the 3 lanes, right?
Mayor, Council, that's correct. We're not gonna be recommending looking at 3 lanes and, part of what's happening as well is, there's different, information. First, there was a survey that went out asking if a study should be conducted. And, at that point, yes, it was in response to COVID. The study was conducted. After the study was conducted, then a second survey went back out to gauge, the public's opinion on the results of the study. So there's 3 parts of that. So it does get pretty confusing, the narrative does change and whatnot. The only recommendations that we'll be making are those items that I mentioned.
Which are safety related.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that explanation.
And still, maybe some additional parking and some of those issues. And then there's some bad spots, on the south side of the street there on the sidewalks that have to have some work done pretty quick. I think over by Zia, we can't tear it up all the way through, so we're gonna work in coordination with DOT. We've had them down, and then there's gonna be some discussion on some of this additional monies that we're receiving, that we can draw down on, that we're gonna apply so that we can show benefit to the business district here, which has been our goal all along. So we want to be forthright and let people know that that's what we really would like to do. So with your help, and I know some of you have walked that area and seen that. So anyway, but yes, no, 2, 3 lanes.
Okay, I just got a comment on that, Midtown, because there was much conception of a lot of people, residents and businesses feel that the council was pushing this through, that it was an agenda item that was just gonna go through. When it first came to us as far as the study, I voiced my reservations about that, and that I just feel it has been proposed before, and it's not easy to convey them. You just don't have a sign of alternative infrastructure to make something like this work anyway. So, I did feel, and I feel that everybody else felt that it was necessary to go ahead since it was proposed to let the study go forward, and that let the people's opinion be heard and voice what the concerns were and what they thought could and should be done in Midtown. So I thought that was important. I feel everybody else was too, but I really felt that the conclusion was going to be exactly what it ended up being. That most people would see that it would have detrimental negative impact. They weren't really interested in going to 3 lanes. And I do feel that a lot of positives do come out of this because of that survey. So I want to thank all of those who did respond and put down their ideas and their concerns and thoughts about Midtown, because with that survey, then I believe there's going to be a lot of positives that come out of this, a lot of the safety concerns, parking, and other issues that people brought up. So I want to thank all those that responded to the survey. I know a lot of people out there have had some anxiety over this, but we just want to say that don't be anxious anymore.
Well, and one thing I just never understood, one of the things we were getting out of this is all this other information, but we needed the traffic surveys and things on Wingfield for some time. We needed the sidewalk repair. We needed some ideas on parking. And what it does is this got the conversation going where people now have shown us their appetite, because I think that we're going to need to find some more property, find some things that we can do. Additional parking. I still get sick and tired of seeing businesses that have a parking spot that they have their employees and themselves parking public parking in front of their building in the street. I mean, I don't get it. So I still would like to see sometime maybe a parking meter program that would get some of these people to do it. Because there's other businesses, and I get calls every weekend that say she's doing it again. She has all her people parked in front of their business on street parking, and my business is across the street or one down, and so those people don't even have a chance to park there. So we're gonna have to come out with a way to make it more equitable for all the businesses, not just those that get there real early in the morning. So that's still going on. But what it has done, Joe, is just what you said. It's got the conversation going. So other people that haven't made comments before, things that have just made phone calls to each one of us at times that we've called the police, we've gone and looked at that. Winfield is a tricky area there because it's, depending what direction you're going, downhill and narrow. We've had mailboxes that have been taken out. We've talked to residents over there. We want to make that safer. I mean, it is very worrisome on that. And so I know there was just some suggestions that came out. And again, this council doesn't move at lightning speed. It's, and so we were told, I was told that we made the decision and we were going to have this in place by Labor Day. That was never an intention. Maybe to get some information back. So we'll be able to hopefully move forward, and then we'll have some support of the residents in those areas. So anyway, but thank you very much. And so we'll continue to look forward to the information coming out of that. But in the meantime, we need to get some signs in there. We will talk to our departments and let them know. I think that's a good idea about having numbers on the trucks. I thought we already did, but sometimes I look right over the obvious, I assume. So we'll need to see about getting some numbers on the vehicles, and get hold of these people.
Somehow Ron knows how to identify all of them.
I know Ron does.
Whether they have the new logo or the old logo.
Okay, item number 9, and I'm glad to see this one finally taking action, and I've gotten quite a bit of kudos from people in the community. So now then, this is discussion of possible action on blighted property located at 2511 Sudrup Drive, formerly known as Reflexology. Bobby Simpson, is that you're up, or are you going to have Samantha talk?
Mayor, members of the council, we just want to thank you all for your continued support on this item. It is the heart of Midtown and a very large piece of property. So we really appreciate y'all's support and through all the ordinances. I will let Bobby discuss. We've had 3 steps that were put in place and 2 have been accomplished, and the 3rd we're bringing before y'all requesting permission. So if you go ahead, Bobby.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for your time. I'm happy to report that on the order that was issued for the property at 2511 Sutter, 2 of the 3 requirements from the council have been met. Those 2 requirements are, first, all outdoor storage of merchandise has been removed, and secondarily, the signage for the business that is no longer in business at the location has also been removed. The one lacking order that has not been met is the vacant building standards. And with the permission of the council, I would like to work with the property owner and the potential new property owner to bring this property into compliance and continue moving forward in the direction that hopefully will benefit Midtown.
Okay, what is your recommendation, that you just continue to work with them? So what, on the vacant building ordinance, what are you asking for us to consider exactly?
What I'm asking of the council is to give us permission to work with the property owner. With the property potentially changing hands, the vacant building issues should be addressed fairly quickly, and therefore it would bring that property into compliance.
So you're asking us to hold off on any fees? Is that what you're asking? Because of course we want you to work with them, but, okay.
Right.
Bob, John, if building permits are taken out on that building, that will take care of the blighted building or the vacant building on it.
I didn't quite catch the full question. I believe is if a building permit were pulled, it should satisfy the vacant building standards. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, and that's our anticipation is that once the property changes hands, that building permits will be pulled. That'll give us an opportunity to state that building is in compliance. For the moment being, it's actually being visited quite often, which would also be something that would bring partial compliance to the building standards. Now that we have someone here locally visiting the building on a regular basis, and we'll follow through with building permits.
The one thing I don't want to happen is that we stall, we've done this before and others, that we start seeing compliance and so we back off and then it stalls and then we move forward. So I would like the time limit on this consideration, to make sure that we are continuing to see progress on that.
A new owner.
What's that?
Just because we have a new owner, we might not should extend the deadline.
Well, and I agree with that, and I know negotiations on property sometimes can take a long time, especially in Midtown on older properties. And, I just don't want to get held up. We've started making progress, and I just want to make sure that we get it to completion. And so how do we accommodate that? Do we put a time limit on this, whatever when you say you want to continue to work with them? I mean, we want to continue to work with them, but we don't want to stall anything, Bobby.
I understand, and I understand the concerns of the council. The potential property change of hands is a substantial difference in what we've seen over the last several years of that building staying vacant, not being used to its full potential. What I'd like to do is ask at least for 30 days so that I can report to the next council meeting. I'm hoping by that time that the change of ownership will happen and there will be a potential plan in place to continue the project.
I think we can certainly accommodate that.
Does that have to do with the motion?
Yeah, if we, okay. Councilor Jackson will put it in there.
So one of the concerns I have is the onus is on the current property owner to come into compliance. And I appreciate working with the potential new owner. However, I don't know how much we can really discuss with a new owner because they don't have any legal ownership to the property. They have no liability on it. And I think all the efforts need to go through the current property owner and let the current property owner share that information with the potential.
It should be in a disclosure.
It should be in a disclosure, yeah, absolutely. So I don't want the potential property owner issue to cloud the subject. And 30 days, yeah, I agree, because it says in here that they're expecting to change ownership within the next 30 days. So give them 30 days. I mean, we've been fighting this battle with the previous tenant for years. So 30 days isn't going to hurt anything.
Yeah, Mayor and Councilor, we've been doing exactly that. We've only been corresponding with the owner of the property, the owner that is the record of the property as of recently. The potential, the person that claims to have ownership is not the owner on record. The person that was leasing the building.
Right. I'm assuming since we're moving forward, that was all resolved in court.
No.
It still hasn't been?
Correct. Yeah. We decided to keep pushing through that because our issues with the property.
So the issue with the legal transfer is another clouded issue, which could create something that goes past that 30 days. But I assumed it was all resolved.
So if we could keep, they've made significant progress. I think that needs to be rewarded. And so if we can go ahead and do the 30 days and then have Bobby report back to us, maybe they'll have that title cleared up for the ownership and then we can move forward on it. But at least we're not backing up on it.
Okay, Mayor and Council, the owner of the property is the legal registered owner of the property, is the only person who's going to deal with it.
Correct.
And if they have some civil dispute going on, that's
concerning.
Well, And that concerns me about getting clear title within the next 30 days, knowing a little bit of information about that.
Sure, we'll know in 30 days.
We're gonna push forward here regardless, and we're just gonna do it. The property owners,
Perfect.
civil disputes around that. Does it have that stuff?
Because if we'd have stopped, we had the opportunity several months ago to back up again, and we chose not to, and look at the progress that's been made. So, and I tell you, the neighbors over there, people across the street, people walking down, have made all kinds of comments. Yes. So,
Well, that was scheduled to go to court last year, because I was on jury duty when that was coming into court. So, and then it got postponed, so.
Okay, so we will, the motion, please, Dr. Jackson, to give us that 30-day timeline.
Mr. Mayor, I move to direct staff to continue to work with the legal established current property owner at 2511 Subject Drive, formerly known as Reflexology, to complete the third step of coming into compliance with the building standards within 30 days.
Second.
Any other discussion?
I would just like to tell Sam and Bobby, thank you so much for continuing with that. That has been such an eyesore, and it's like a breath of fresh air right now. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Bobby, I kind of missed the golden lines.
He might have one for you.
Well, and now that Bobby's got help, I know he's got a number of other properties that he's looking at.
Which we'll be talking about at later today. We gotta move on that. Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Counselor Jackson,
Aye.
Counselor Letterman,
Aye.
Counselor Salas,
Aye.
Counselor Coughlin,
Aye.
Counselor Cornelius,
Aye.
Counselor Eby.
Okay, thank you all. Item number 10, discussion and possible action on threats by Lincoln County Commission to increase property taxes on short-term rental properties located in the village of Ruidoso. Zach Cook, can you go through this and explain?
So again, here in council, so it's July, the county petition for this done. Posted their agenda, which included an executive session for threatening litigation and other exceptions to open meetings act that were posted on the agenda. But there is no agenda, there is no exceptions to open meetings act for the discussion of property tax issues. And they came out of executive session, and the very next thing on their agenda was a discussion of property tax issues. Also, it's my understanding that the county assessor was in that meeting. So it just appears that they closed the meeting and had a conversation about property tax increases, and further evidence of that is their continued requests for property tax or lodging tax information from the village. So it's pretty clear that that the county commission and the assessor are of the mind to track down and identify all of the residential properties within the village of Ruidoso that are being used for short-term rentals, and to reclassify those as non-residential, which means the property tax will go up on those properties. Your ordinance that provides for the regulation of short-term rentals specifically states that the short-term rental overlay zone is a residential zone, and the county coming in and classifying properties in residential areas as non-residential may be offensive, I guess, or run afoul of our ordinances. And so, just depending on what you guys want to do, I've been researching over the past 7-10 days the ability of the village to have a judge make a determination of whether or not, the county can come in and
classify residential properties as non-residential in what you guys have zoned as residential. And also in light of the fact that our Court of Appeals has, decided at least twice in written opinions that, short-term rentals in residences that activity is specifically residential activity. So, I know that the mayor was very concerned about this, raising taxes on property owners in the village and the effects that could have on our, not on the individual property owners, but on our county in general. So we want to put this on and see what you guys, would like to do. You have to apply for a very quick numbers. It's a way of going to decide, people's respective rights to contracts, or in this case, an ordinance, and other things. So, that's the long and short of where we are. Basically, the county, raise property taxes within the village on property that you guys have classified as residential, or even zone as residential.
So, and we had sent off a letter I had to the Attorney General to have them look into maybe that there was an open meetings violation, and it's just, that's what the Attorney General does, is looks at it and see if there was anything, because at the very least, the public needs to see this. The first motion was for the notification to go to the newspaper, and then a Freedom of Information Act request for the village to provide pertinent information on all of our short-term rentals, which we felt like is proprietary information, confidential information. It could have some impact on some of the businesses that their business is short-term rentals, to show the revenue, location, all these different things. So there's a lot of privacy issues that just felt like that were being walked over, that we wanted to get out in the public and have some other eyes on it. And so that's what we had done. I know the initial motion was denied, and then it was reopened to just not send it to the newspaper, just send it to us. And so we have complied. I mean, we've complied after talking to our attorney and legal counsel that we've complied with the Freedom of Information Act. We've done what we were asked to do, rule of law, but we want the public to know about it. And so I just want you guys to understand what we were looking at and get some discussion about how we should proceed with this, because I think there's privacy issues. I think it could impact a lot of our, some of our businesses here, and definitely impact. I don't know how you just willy-nilly say you're going from residential to commercial, and then what if you don't do short-term rentals? Just for example, through this COVID with the governor's order, that she put a halt on all short-term rentals and whatever, you had to lease them for at least 6 months, I believe it was. Wasn't it 6 months or a year? Something like that. So, or over 30 days. They had to be over 30 days. And so a lot of people that had short-term rental pulled them out of there and rented them for the whole summer. And I did that. And so it gets you out of the short-term rental lodger's tax, it gets you out of all that. So how do you just flip back and forth through this? Number one, there was a request made by County Manager Anita Taylor sometime back to our own manager, Mr. Dodge, because we have purchased the software, we have done all the things that we need to do to keep track of our short-term rentals. But they were asking us basically to do their work. We just didn't feel like that was responsible for us to do it. So that's what this is about. And I just like to, if anybody has any comments or questions on this, I'd like to hear them.
Well, Mayor, my concern here, I talked to Zach a little bit about this before, but so through this, how does the county get to classify certain residential homes that are in a residential neighborhood that we classify as residential commercial property, because then that would be a spot zone. And I have another question that I asked Zach about that, is that if we are now considered a commercial property, we're paying commercial property taxes, then what if I decide, well, I don't want to do short-term rental, I want to start running a retail shop, I want to can't look on paying commercial property taxes, so why can't I have a commercial business of my residence? And then what does that mean to village? What does that mean to surrounding residents? So I think this is a big can of worms, because they, a lot of issues with this. And I really don't know why they're going down this road.
They want more money.
Did you ever get any kind of correspondence from the county?
No, I haven't had any correspondence from the county. Tim was asked to basically hand over all the information. We required him to go through the Freedom of Information Act and apply for it. And so, we're following the process, even though we think it's a privacy issue and we shouldn't have that access to that information. I mean, you can't get this information off GRT.
No.
And so how come on short-term rentals? And then just think about it, if they're able to spot zone this, and what about, we're bringing in fiber optic into the community to hopefully give home-based businesses a chance to operate. So now then, are all these home-based businesses going to be switched over to commercial?
Well, they brought up the notion that, if this goes through, then you have your business registration. And looking out of your home, you don't have a commercial building, but then, does that now open it up to being zone commercial?
I agree. It's just, I don't understand it all. Did you have something, Manager Dodge?
Yes, Mayor, I wanted to, kind of go back to where I started discussions with the county, sometime back, not just myself, but other individuals. It was my understanding that there were several property owners that were expressing concerns and had inquired. I was actually at the meeting where they talked about the county assessor being supervised directly by TRD, and that there wasn't clear guidance on how to reclassify, the properties, whether they remain residential or commercial. That some counties were leaving them as residentials, and some counties were, reclassifying them as non-commercial. So, I don't think that there's clear guidance. The only way that you get a clear guidance in this type of a situation is if you ask for a declaratory judgment, so that somebody makes that kind of a judgment. They kind of left it up to each individual taxpayer and said, well, if you want to challenge it, then there's a procedure for that. Normally by that time, people don't even understand how the properties are reassessed, and, I think that's a not real clear way of challenging it. But my recommendation is that we do look at some type of declaratory judgment and look at all these different issues, because I totally agree. Eventually it's gonna, they're gonna start doing that with anybody that has a home-based business.
So, how many short-term rental permits do we currently have approximately?
If I'm not mistaken, Counselor, it's right about 940, if I remember the 940, correct?
Okay, I spoke to two people from the Lincoln County Board of Realtors. And first of all, they pleaded with me, do not refer to it as commercial. The only two designations is residential and non-residential. There's some other reason they have behind that, because they've battled this for a while too. They're estimating that property taxes, from what they've heard from some people, go up from changing it from residential to non-residential, go up $200 a year. Okay, $200. 940 properties is $188,000 a year in additional taxes to property owners here in Ruidoso. But then, like you guys have alluded to, my concern is if they're then going to do that, what's next with the business permits, where they're going to go to these people with home occupied businesses, and it could even just be somebody who doesn't even really run out of their business, that's just where their mail comes to, and then change those designations to non-residential because they know they can get about $200 a pop. Where's it going to end? And then who, for them to be able to usurp our ability to declare a zoning for an area, to come in and say, oh, no, we don't care what you say. It's now not residential. It's going to be non-residential. And then what's that going to mean also for that property owner when their insurance company finds out they don't have residential property anymore? It's now non-residential. So I think there's a number of issues. One is that Open Meetings Act potential violation, something doesn't sound right there. And the other thing is, yeah, I'm agreeing that if we just sit back and wait for this to take place and then go and fight it, I think we need to be proactive and and seek a declaratory judgment on it. We need to get somebody to step in now and say, this is not right, knock it off, and let everybody be able to rest and not have to worry about it. Because even, and let's admit it, there are some people who buy a property and it's just 100% short-term rental. That's what they're using the property for. A lot of people have short-term rentals, but it's because they live out of town. And then during certain times when they get their vacations, they're coming up, they're staying in that property, and this is just a way for them to help with their expenses, yeah. And that's all dealt with by the IRS as far as taxability on those incomes and those expenses. But we're affecting a lot of people doing this that don't need to be affected, and it's just wrong, I think. So to me, if those numbers, $200 a year per property, like I said, just on the permits that we currently have, that's $188,000 a year. And we know that the county's always looking for additional revenues of income because they're limited in what they can, where their revenues come from.
I was over at another negative impact with that. Just say if you have your 1,000 short-term rentals, I compare commercial-wide, like county, and maybe have the impact businesses that are just that, I'm just going to out of the air to 800. So we've got 1,800. People only have so much space for taxes. They have so much space for taxes, and this is going to be a property tax. So you give enough opportunity to turn 1,500 voters from voting for your water bond, voting for your EMD bond, voting for your school bond. So you are actually having a negative impact, not only on this particular election, but on
No, I totally agree. So, sounds like we understand what we should do. So should we table this for now and have closed session? Or just vote on it? What's the process
To take action on it, because the notices of evaluation have already gone out for this year. So you'll have to wait till next year to reevaluate on the rate. But maybe that'll give Zach enough time to, I think it definitely needs to be pursued. It's gonna, the realtors use that short-term rental as a sales pitch.
Oh, sure.
People are looking at retiring up there in 10 years. Well, get most of your mortgage paid until then. Yeah. And it's gonna hurt that. It's hard on grocery receipts, it'll hurt construction.
Maintenance, all of those stuff. Yeah. So what we're looking at, Zach, I guess we'll need a motion to direct Zach to proceed with the declaratory judgment profile or whatever request. Okay, anybody else have any questions? That's where we're at, and can I get a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move to support and enact a declaratory judgment with respect to short-term rentals as assessed by the county for unjust taxation without representation.
Second.
There we have a motion second. Any other discussion? Okay.
Oh, there's Zach.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
If you guys amend that motion to direct your legal to take legal action up to including filing appropriate complaint or petition in the district court to resolve this matter.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, second? Yeah. Yes. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, you got that, Irma?
Mayor, Crawford, members of the governing body, Zach, can you repeat what you want at the tail end of that motion?
To direct the legal to proceed with any and all legal action up to including legal action in the district court to resolve this matter.
or rather to determine the village's rights with regards to its zoning ordinances.
Mayor, before we come up, can I have a discussion with Zach?
Okay. That, Tim's coming to see you.
Okay. So, yeah, just withdraw your motion.
So we need a,
Second, to sustain it.
we already did.
Oh.
Yeah, when you said I accept the friendly amendment or whatever, he agreed to it.
I still like your little.
Taxation, no representation.
I borrowed that actually from Zach, because when we had our
Oh, yeah.
workshop, that's exactly what he said. Why not just put it out there? We had a tea party about that.
That was a little bit before my time.
Eric spent a lot of.
Susan, did you wear your bathing suit for that?
Smarty pants. No, but I feel like I'm cold.
Oh, I thought we were trying to know.
Go, turn it up.
No.
Was it raining a while ago or?
Yeah, it's raining.
Oh, it is raining?
Yeah. There was,
I heard that.
thunder within 10 miles. Or lightning.
Okay.
So your, agenda item says discussion of possible action on threats by Lincoln County Commission to increase property taxes on short-term rental properties located in the village of Ruidoso. I think the manager wants to make sure that we're in compliance with the Open Meetings Act and that we take action that was posted and noticed to the public. I believe if you take action, I mean, as the proposed motion, which was to move to direct legal to take legal action up to and including an action in the district court, I think you would be in compliance with Open Meetings Act and it would be consistent with your. There's a problem, so
we need to withdraw the former,
Motion, and
Motion.
and substitute the motion with the amendment. So that basically what we're doing.
just withdraw your original motion and move to direct legal to,
handle threats by Lincoln County Commission to increase property taxes, blah, 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 of Ruidoso,
take any and all legal action.
up to litigation.
And I just want to make sure that we're consistent with the action item that's posted.
Sure.
Well, if you feel better, a closed session has to deal with threatened or pending litigation.
You can't close it for threatened and pending litigation until there's actually threatened or pending litigation. This motion would make it a threatened, meet that barrier in this.
So do you feel we have pretty good precedence on this with our ordinance and a couple of appeal court rulings?
Let's talk about that in executive session.
So Zach, let me ask you a question regarding that semantics then. How do we ever institute or start a litigation if we're not already being threatened or there's pending litigation?
You're doing it right now.
But you said this closed session call is for threatened or pending, and we're not being threatened and it's not pending right now.
Now it's threatened.
We're
in
so we can talk about now we're threatening it. Okay, so then we could, if we needed to go into executive, if you're not comfortable with coming out with a motion right now, we could do that in a closed session.
Well, we're comfortable with the motion right now.
We gotta have the motion now, then we can discuss it.
So they can read it in the paper.
Yep. Well, we can come out.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to withdraw or,
So I move to withdraw the previous motion.
Last second.
okay, and the second has withdrawn his also. So we need a clean motion, a new motion.
Yes.
Is that going to make a recommendation?
Okay. I would
I just want to
recommend,
keep it clean this time.
sure, and I don't know enough to. So move to direct legal to take any and all action, including litigation in the district court regarding the threats by the Lincoln County Commission to increase property taxes on short-term rental properties located in the village of Ruidoso.
So moved.
I so move.
So seconded.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. Yeah.
Is it strategic?
No. Have they made a threat? Is this a perceived threat?
My understanding is that they've already reclassified certain properties in the village.
Okay.
But nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we get a letter of notice?
Should be on their evaluation.
When they get their valuations.
And wouldn't we do that out?
I don't know if it comes before or after, but they would definitely get notice of evaluation. Right.
And this has been going on for a year or two.
If they pay attention to the property tax bill going from R to NR.
And those are guys, correct. Some people get the valuation, don't understand it. And then when they get the property tax bill, it's really too late to challenge.
So we had it, and so seconded, okay, we'll go ahead and call the vote. Roll call, please.
Mayor Crawford, if before we proceed with that, I may have clarification or have the motion in writing, because after the lengthy discussion, I want to make sure that the record reflects.
What we just stated.
How many people ever really look at their valuation?
What would
I do now.
They'll understand. Oh, yeah. It's too late.
Majority of people don't understand it.
A lot of people don't even know what they paid in property taxes last year. I mean, I'm one of them. I don't know what I paid, because it's spread out so far.
Well, yeah, if it's on a mortgage, you don't.
Yeah. Suddenly your mortgage payments goes up.
But what are all the implications afterwards, the ripple effects of that?
Oh, there's so many.
And we're already having insurance issues on other things with COVID, and then you're talking about, the non-rental payers, you can't have them moved out, and then how this is affecting everyone.
I like how sometimes people more if you're escrow and they send you a check at the end of the year.
That's a different topic.
Yeah, that's your 0% savings account.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I could have one person.
Yes, go right ahead. Yeah, hold on, guys. Go ahead.
I move to direct legal to take any legal actions, including action in district court related to threats by Lincoln County Commission to increase property taxes on short-term rental properties located in the village of Ruidoso.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that minute. Councilor Jackson.
Aye.
Councilor Kaufman.
Aye.
Councilor Cornelius.
Aye.
Councilor Salas.
Aye.
Councilor Letterman. Aye. Councilor Eby.
Aye. Okay.
Now then, we have closed session item, so we'll need a motion to go into closed session, please, sir.
Oh, I got it.
Concerned, we don't get any tax, we don't get any interest, but I find out about it, it's.
Let's go.
Mr. Mayor, move that we go into closed session for discussion subject to the attorney-client privilege pertaining to threat of pending litigation in which the village of Ruidoso is or may become a participant by 1015 1 Mexico Statutory Authority 1978. And the action taken as a result of the closed session will be brought back into open session.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Councilor Jackson.
Aye.
Councilor Letterman. Aye. Councilor Salas.
Aye.
Councilor Kaufman.
Aye.
Councilor Cornelius.
Aye.
Councilor Eby.
Okay, we'll say time out to all the people watching, and we'll post it on the door and all the other